Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We're streaming out live on 21stCenturyWire.com, the alternate current radio network, as well as streaming out live on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Facebook Live, and a number of other platforms. Are also on the audio streams after the program. If you subscribe to any of those, they'll be uploaded soon after on iTunes, Spotify, and a number of the top audio streaming platforms. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 549 of this weekly Omnibus News and Analysis radio program. We got a special segment just to kick things off. We're going to bring on a special guest to talk about the important developing situation, the crisis, potential civil war, in fact, in Syria, the imminent breakup of Syria, potentially. Very important conversation. We're going to bring our guest, very special guest, on to talk about that shortly. And then afterwards, we're going to go into Overdrive, and we'll be joined by a couple of our team members at Alternate Current Radio Network. Hesher, aka Bryan McClain, also Basil Valentine may join us as well in the Overdrive segment. A lot of news to cover, a lot of domestic U.S. news as well. We'll be sure to hit that. But I want to bring on our guest right now, and we'll bring him up on stage. He's joining us on the live link. And I want to welcome on to the program Karim Franceschi. Karim, thank you very much for joining us this week on the Sunday Wire.
Thank you for inviting me, Patrick.
Thank you. And just a little introduction. Karim is born in Casablanca, Morocco. His father's Italian, his mother's Moroccan, and he basically got introduced to the Syrian story, Karim, when he went to Kobani in 2014 on a humanitarian mission. And based on what you saw there, it seems like you decided to stay and really join the fight to defend that city, to defend the Kurdish community, as well as the broader community against the emergence of ISIS. And this has been recounted in your books as well. If you go to Karim's social media, we'll bring his account up on screen briefly in a few minutes or later on in the segment. But that's part of your experience there. Of course, you've been back to Syria since as well. And the fall of Raqqa, you've had firsthand experience there. So you've got a really unique, I think, perspective, Karim, about what's going on in the country. But I want to hand it over to you. Hopefully I got your bio correct there. But it's, looking back at all that's happened to that country from 2011, the so-called Arab Spring, all of the different trials and tribulations of Syria, all the fighting, the balkanization of the country, and then look what happened in December. It was something that a lot of people did not expect to happen, and so suddenly. And I personally, myself, I've been to Syria during the war in 2017, and it's, to me, horrifying what's happened to this country. So we have a lot to talk about there, but I'm going to hand it over to you. Anything else you want to tell me about, or tell our audience about, your experience with Syria, and then we'll get into the discussion about where things are now under the new regime. But go ahead, Karim.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, what is there to add? I've been a commander in between 2016 and 2017. I helped set up the International YPG battalion, which hosted foreign volunteers, internationalists. That's how I like to call them. And they came from all over Europe, all over the world. And we had a significant contribution during the campaign to liberate Raqqa. So all that advance from Kobani to the liberation of what at that time was the capital of the Islamic State. In the years I've been there as an Arab Moroccan, Amazigh, I have no relation to the Kurdish cause in terms of bloodlines. My parents are not Kurdish. And when I went there as a Marxist activist, and I had no real relation to the Kurdish cause. up to that point, and then I decided, to make the jump, so to speak, and join the resistance in a city under siege. My Italian comrades were telling me I was a fool back then, and also the Kurdish comrades were across the border in Turkey told me the same. But in that time, I rose through the ranks of the YPG. I learned Kurdish fluently. I learned the Arabic, the type of Arabic that is spoken, Shami, that is spoken in that region. Moroccans speak Darija, and they would not understand a word you say when you're there. So I was always an outsider somehow until the liberation of Raqqa, until I had not only the international battalion under my command, but I had like 300 to 500 men, which were Arabs in the southern front of Raqqa, and they were all under my command. And I could relate to them very well because I speak their same language, I understand the culture. So I was never, and that's what I wanted to precise, I was never Lawrence of Arabia. I was never the Western savior, the white man going there to teach the brown man how to fight. I was always, as an Italian, half Moroccan, as a Moroccan, half Italian. So I walked among them, but I wasn't one of them. That's my point.
Yeah, we've got some pictures. Actually, we'll bring this up on screen, some images from your time there. Will show us here. What's this? Presumably is a tank that was commandeered by ISIS, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was a tank that was airstriked by the coalition. And it's funny, that picture was published by the Turkish press. They called me Italian terrorist, join the Kurds in the siege of Kobani, because Turkey at that time was cheering for ISIS to finish off the Kurdish resistance, which has been a thorn in Turkey's side for a long time, as you know.
Yeah, so this, I would imagine this is a tank stolen from the Iraqi arsenal and then brought across the border. Is that right?
Yeah, or maybe even from Assad. Because the things that they have taken from the Iraqi arsenal, we're talking about Abrahams. Yeah, we're not talking about T-72s or T-76. We're talking about Abrahams. We're talking about American equipment. And they brought that also to Kobani for sure. That before the American intervention, if you look at the images, because there was a big hill on the Turkish side, and they were filming the siege while it was happening. And even before American intervention, you would think airstrikes were taking place because ISIS brought so much equipment from Mosul, and they were using tanks and artillery so heavily that it looks like airstrikes. The city wasn't destroyed by the Americans; was already destroyed by ISIS during the siege.
So this is Raqqa.
This is Kobani.
Oh, this is Kobani after the siege of Kobani. Okay, and that's you there holding what looks like a Kalashnikov.
An AK-47, yeah.
An AK-47. Okay, there's the classic firearm, and then you're wearing ghillie suits here, so I assume sniper duty here. Yeah,
like in the 3 months I was in the siege, the first month I lost 5 times my team. Like my team was completely butchered, and I had to be moved to a new team, and new teams kept getting formed until I was selected to join the sniper unit, which was one platoon led by, I don't know if you remember him, Musa the Sniper. He's a Kurd whose picture has become very notorious because it's a picture of him, and under him the ruins of Kobani, and he's holding a sniper rifle. And I was basically I was his pupil for a month, and that's me with a Mosin Nagant. With the scope, which is the PSO-1 scope, the scopes that usually go on a Dragunov, on an SVD. And yeah, like I was just improvising, and that's the only rifle that was left for me. So it wasn't ideal, really. I prefer to have something more light, but it did the job.
And I remember having a conversation with a member of the Syrian Arab Army when I was in Syria, and they were talking about their facing off against ISIS fighters, and they said that these were the best trained soldiers that they had ever encountered, that they had been, they appeared like they were trained to NATO standard. The level, they're well equipped. These weren't ragtag fighters by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe this was early on. I'm sure that the ranks changed over the years. But was that your experience as well? Was there the quite powerful fighting force?
Absolutely, yeah, I can attest to that. We found a Arab sniper, and he had a booklet written in perfect English, perfect, like academic level. And he had all the calculations done in it, and they were like not only NATO standards, they were like American standards, because you have to understand, he was from Saudi Arabia. We could tell because he had his passport on him. But here's the thing, the calculation were done in mills, and only the US Army trains that way. Like if you go anywhere else in the world, they don't train in mills. They have other ways to calculate distances. They don't do miles. It makes no sense for us to do miles. We do kilometers, meters. So that guy had for sure some kind of very advanced military training from a US entity. There is no way around that.
Yeah, we'll bring that back up on screen here, and just this. So this is the International Brigade. These are the international.
That's the core assault group. I'm on the right. I had an M16 with a thermal sight on it, and in front, going from right to left, you have a British ex-army veteran. He has had some deployments in Afghanistan. Then the one sitting with RPG was just a political volunteer, ideological, from Spain. Then you have an American with the rockets in his back, no prior military experience, but the core commanders of my battalion were the two sitting next to him. So the one in front, from Finland, Finnish officer, he had, you can't see it, but he has a night vision scope on his rifle that we took from ISIS, very advanced. And again, another one from Finland, also a Finnish officer, and then one Germany and England. The one from Germany, which is the almost last, the second from the right, he has died. He has been killed by a Turkish airstrike when Turkey later on launched the incursion inside Syria to take Ras Al Ain, the Kurds call it Surekani, and he tried to defend that city. And a lot of more than you think, more foreign volunteers than you would think have been killed by Turkish airstrikes. And of course, there was never any complaints from the coalition.
We'll bring the map of Syria up here on screen, and we're talking mainly, I think, your experience being the northeastern quadrant of the country. So you can see Al-Raqqa, a province in the middle, and then Al-Hakasa and Al-Qamishli, and so you have experience in a lot of these areas, I gather. And we'll get to the configurations. We'll talk about the present day Syria, but I think it's important that people understand, the role and the position of the Kurdish forces in Syria. And just to finish off those images that you provided us here, and you can see that's the flag of is that the YPG flag?
YPG International. It's our flag. We designed it.
Yep. So international. So how did people recruit? Is it something that people just did self-deployed? They just tried to reach out via, and social media, or go there and literally try to get on the ground and get involved? And what was your experience with how people came to join this effort?
Well, when I joined, it was pretty much there was no system for it. I was one of the first who got there. So when I went to Kobani, I watched on screen Jordan Madsen and another 4 or 5 volunteers who were on the other side, of Syria, and I thought they were in Kobani. When I arrived, I found out I was the only internationalist there, short of some Turkish internationalists who were from those communist Turkish parties who are illegal in Turkey on terrorist lists. But short of that, I didn't find anyone until later on. I found there was an American Jew there also, and some others were like half Kurds, so not really internationalists, but they were living in the West and they came there. But after later on, they set up an academy, international academy, because like foreign volunteers started to, show up more and more and request to join more and more. They would just write emails to the account of YPG International. They had a website, and then you had a big influx, and you had all kinds of people coming over, ideologically aligned, complete fascists. You had adventurists, many adventurers showed up really. And then when the numbers increased later on in 2016, you had a big influx of ideological volunteers, people who were ideologically aligned with the autonomous cause, which is very close to anarchy, but it's really socialist, it's not anarchist. But don't tell that to anarchists, they will not believe you. They will argue with you incessantly. At any rate, you had also, it's sad to say, but you had a proportionate increase in volunteers intake and requests as the airstrikes intensified. Because when I went there, airstrikes were very little. You could not call airstrikes to begin with. So you would hope for them not to hit you, because that sometimes they hit our positions. And we didn't have a real systematic way to coordinate with the international coalition. That changed significantly in Raqqa, where we would be able to do that more efficiently. And they did most of the job. On this point, there are a lot of noises around, especially coming from the US establishment, where they say, oh yeah, well, Trump said it. The Kurds are very good at fighting when they have airstrikes. Without airstrikes, they're not so good, yeah? And he launched a jab at them. I must say that that's a real problem that I addressed with commanders during Raqqa. The Kurds were very good at fighting without airstrikes before the international community showed up. Then they became over-reliant on them. And that's a direct consequence of the help they received. Because until the US showed up, the Kurds there, they were fighting against ISIS, they were fighting against al-Nusra, Sinjar, they were fighting all over the place, and they were holding their enclaves. It's not like they've been overwhelmed. So yeah, that's a reality that we had to deal with during the Raqqa offensive.
And if you can just explain to people who might be a little confused, there's a lot of different acronyms when it comes to Kurdish forces. So you've got, if you can, in as simple as possible, I know it can get complicated, but the difference between the PKK, the YPG, the PYD, and most importantly, the SDF. Who were the SDF, apparently attached to the U.S. military more directly, but the difference between those four abbreviations, if you could, Karim.
Well, people, I don't know if they know, but the PKK was born during the big crackdown that happened in the 70s, 80s on everything that was democracy and everything that was socialist in Turkey. There was like a big golpe by the military, and they cracked down on all these revolutionaries, so to speak, and put them all into jail. Öcalan at that time was smart enough to be outside of Turkey, and he founded the PKK party he was in Lebanon, where a lot of Kurdish refugees were living. And thanks to the big help that he received from the Palestinian resistance, he was able to bring in militants from Turkey, Kurds from Turkey, and all over Kurdistan, which is divided in 4 parts: Syria, Turkey, Iran, and Iraq. And he would bring them on and train them. with the help of these Palestinian Liberation Front. And at the beginning, it was just one party, and then there were so many Kurds that they filled up all training camps from all factions, even Iranian factions. Like every faction at that time from the Palestinian resistance that had a training camp had PKK Kurds training there, and that's where they learned guerrilla tactics. That's where they learned everything they know today, and that what actually allowed them to put their leg up in terms of because there were many different revolutionary groups in Turkey, like Marxist, Leninist. They were Marxist, Leninist too, by the way, but that gave him a leg up. And from there, a lot of things happened. He was captured in the 90s, and they changed completely from Marxist-Leninists to autonomists, taking from Moray Bookchin, becoming less, more ecological. They took a completely different route. Now they're not Marxist-Leninists at all. They have some, they still feel they're socialists, so they feel that their ideology is socialist. They're anti-state, though. At the beginning, when they were Marxist-Leninists, they were fighting for communist state, a Kurdish communist state, and then they abandoned nationalism altogether. And that's actually what made them split up from even the Kurdish faction that liked them a little bit because they were nationalists. Now they see those Kurdish factions, the nationalist one, they see them as much as an enemy as Erdogan or other nationalist groups. So they're completely against nationalism in that sense. They built, during that time, they kind of taken the playbook of Maoists. And the Maoists, they have this ideology, which is, this strategy of splinting up. Not only having an armed resistance group, but having a political party and having, because they call it popular revolution fundamentally. And that's what the PKK has done. They have split up. They have created an umbrella group that is above the PKK, which is called the KJK. And the KJK unites under it ideologically all kind of groups. So the YPG, the PKK, the HDP in Turkey, but it's not a structural organization that gives orders. It's just an ideological one that allows a synthesis of all these groups and try to give an ideological background. Because then the HDP in Turkey, for example, is a legitimate political party with which has won a lot of seats in mayorships, and they have seats in the parliament, in the Turkish parliament. The PYD had and still has, I think, seats in the Syrian parliament, like the PYD. Like you have Saleh Muslim. Saleh Muslim has founded another party too, but the Saleh Muslim has always had a seat in the Assad parliament, even during the Syrian civil war. So they branch up, ideological, cultural, political, and they don't confine themselves in the field of armed struggle, and that's it. Like Hamas or other groups, so the ideological framework doesn't come from the YPG. You will never see the YPG coming out with a communique or an analysis per se. They would never do that. You would never read a Maslum Abdi interview in which he gives a breakdown, an analysis of what's happening in Syria, for example, from an ideological or bigger frame point of view. The KJK does that all the time. And the KJK, funnily enough, has always been consistent in being anti-Zionist and criticizing very heavily the war in Gaza, which they call genocidal, which they define a war that targets not excessively, for the main part, women and children. So it's funny because you hear a lot of chatter. The YPG might even seem sometimes to be a tool of hegemony that Israel tried to use, or the United States tried to use. But then you see the KJK leaders who are very critical of the United States, of the United States imperialism. And that's why the three main leaders have bounties on their head. the three main leaders of the KJK have higher bounties on their head than Jolani had on his own.
So that's you're talking about the Kurdish organizations in Turkey and northeastern Syria, but in Iraqi Kurdistan is slightly different. It's radically different, actually, and Israel is very much aligned and active in Iraqi Kurdistan on intelligence and a military level. Yeah. So you just explain that difference.
Yeah, because in Iraq you have, it's the only state where they don't the KJK doesn't have an extension, because they have it in Iran, which is the PJAK. They have it in Syria, which is the YPG. They have it in Turkey, which is the PKK. But they don't have it in Iraq. Why? Because one of the conditions the Americans have placed for the creation of the KRG was the expulsion of the PKK from Iraq. They didn't want any meddling from the PKK. So in Iraq, you have two families, two clans, basically, or agglomerates of clans, Kurdish clans, which are dividing themselves the influence. They're pretty much split 50%. And they went to war with each other in the back in the time. With, I think, 15,000 casualties. Like, they really went at it when they fought each other. And one is Talabani, and one is Barzani, the two main families. And they really act like mafia, like the way they control the land, the way they exploit the people, the way they give contracts, the way they sell the oil, everything about their policy, it's mafia-like. It's a mob family. And they've been dumb as hell, ultra-Zionists, and they didn't get anything for it. Honestly, when they tried to call for the referendum of independence, that was Barzani. The PKK condemned it. Before that happened, he said, don't do it. We're against it anyway, but don't do it. Talabani was against it too. And Erdogan told them, go ahead, buddy, I'll back you up. Israel said the same. And when he called for the independence referendum, I know because I was there stuck. I was trying to leave Iraq at that time. And I was stuck because Iraq seized all the airports, grounded all the airplanes, and sent their Shia militia to take over Kirkuk's oil fields, which were supposed to be part of these independent Kurdish state that Barzani was trying to achieve. Israel didn't do nothing. Like when that happened, Israel told them, "Oh, we support you. We support the state." They didn't even recognize it, mind you. They just supported it in rhetoric, and the Shia came there and they just like stomped over the Peshmergas, and they just like in 3 days they took over everything. And Erdogan actually went against them. He condemned the thing, even though before he approved it, and you can find it in newspapers, like it's public. So very dumb. He lost the oil field, which he controlled until then. And those are the oil fields that have supplied Israel with oil from the Kurdish regions. But since that referendum failed, that oil is completely under the control of the Iraqi authority, and not one drop of oil has reached Israel since 2017, because the entire overwatch and oversight over it is in the hands of the Iraqi authorities.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Iran didn't recognize them as a state. Turkey didn't recognize them. Syria didn't recognize them. And Baghdad, of course, didn't recognize them. So in international law, that is like 0 for 5. There's no state, basically. Good luck.
And they lost the fight in 3 days. Like, can you hold them more than 3 days, at least to get some international condemnation? Like, you lose in 3 days all your oil fields. And here's the funny part. They were overpaying foreign mercenaries, like American mercenaries. And I met them in the airport in Baghdad, because we had to go to Baghdad to board the plane. The planes were all grounded, in Suleimania and Erbil, which are the two airports in the KRG region. And there were these GI Joes, like bulked up, like Rambos, like completely bulked up, and it looked like they've been doing weight the whole time they were there, and they were paid a crazy amount of money to defend those oil fields. As soon as they saw the Shia militia, and they knew there were no air cover, because of course the Americans didn't help them either because they were against it, they just like cut tail and ran. And there you have it, like all these mercenaries, ex-special forces and stuff like that. They just for months, years took money from these Kurds who looked at the white savior as someone who can actually protect them. And mind you, one of them was paid the same as 50 Peshmergas. So one of those mercenaries, bulked up, who has done steroids and lift weight for all the time he was there, one of them counted for 50 Peshmergas a paycheck. And they just ran away. It's funny because I met them at the Baghdad airport and they were talking about this, oh, these Shia men, when we knew we didn't have air cover, we're not gonna try to engage with them, you know, without that component. So they just like ran as fast as they could.
Yeah, about $1,500 a day in some cases.
Yeah, and the Peshmergas were getting paid like at that time, you would not believe it. They were getting paid $80 a month.
A month, yeah, yeah, higher than a Syrian military, or about the same as a Syrian Arab Army soldier as well. Yeah, the economics are just so distorted when you bring in the big American mercenary firms paid by extracted oil money, no doubt. So that's good that you kind of delineated some of the differences there, Karim, and also, you know, the SDF. Were you attached or around the SDF, or did the U.S. consider you SDF, your groups, or was that a completely separate group of Kurdish fighters in northeastern Syria?
Yeah, the SDF is the same. The YPG officially dissolved into SDF, and officially they remained as a core unit within
in 2017 or 18.
Yeah, around that time. The YPJ, which is the female unit, never dissolved officially because they didn't care about that bullshit. Because the Americans came out with that name. They were like, oh, you know what you can call yourself to appease the American public. You can go with Syrian Democratic Forces, and there is democracy in it. And the Kurds were like, yeah, well, whatever makes you happy, man. And they were like, and the American thought he was a genius, and the Kurd thought he was dumb as hell. But you know, they didn't want to just tell that American general that he was a moron. And they changed the name, which is moronic in my opinion, because it didn't take them off one bit from the Turkish terrorist list. And the only thing that happened is that they lost prestige, because people remember the YPG liberating Kobani and that heroic resistance. And then you get these SDF, which is a name that looks very corporate, very retarded in my opinion. And yeah, they went with it, and they're still going with it. But it allowed them, on the other hand, to bring in the Arabs, because a big, like now, I think 60% of the SDF are Arabs and not Kurds. And QSD, which is the literal translation of the acronym in Kurd, in Arabic, it goes very well with the Arabs. It gives them an identification that they can understand. If YPG stands for Yekeneye Parestanagel, which is a Kurdish name, People's Protection Unit, and it would not have resonated with the Arab population as much, not even a little bit. So at the end of the day, it wasn't bad. But when the Americans came up with it, they didn't think about that. They just thought democracy would be in it, and that it would sound nice to the American audience, news outlets, and stuff like that.
So they needed the Americans needed to have a local partner. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to have a military presence in Deir ez-Zor and to occupy the oil fields and to have different military establishments and operate in Syria. They needed to have a local partner, so the SDF was created to kind of legitimize the American military presence in there from 2017 onwards. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, absolutely. And to answer your previous question about the way Americans treated me, they hated my guts. Like they couldn't understand how a foreign national would be sitting in the Council of Generals. And when I had a waiver that allowed me to go through any checkpoints unchecked. I was the only one with that waiver. So I had 3 Toyotas full of soldiers, and I would go through American checkpoints and show them the waiver. And they didn't like it because my guys all carried phones. They were filming, taking pictures, and they just didn't want to be. It's not even a security thing. They just didn't want someone who could challenge their narrative about their role there, and because they were literally taking credit where there was no reason for them to take credit. Like they were saying, we've done that, and actually the Kurds lost like 100 people to do it, and Americans would just come over and say, you know, we did it ourselves. And plus, they always had these back mind thing, that this thing in the back of their mind, strategically, in which they saw the Kurds only as a strategic tactical partner. They never ever acknowledge the political project, which, by the way, since its implementation to now, has never there has never been a bloodshed in terms of sectarian wars or our community being displaced. That has never happened. What happened in the Syrian coastline for years has never happened in the northeastern area. One time they tried to call for elections, and the Americans stopped them. They didn't allow them to call elections because that would have somehow needed, somehow they would have needed to comment on it. And at the same time, while they were using the SDF as a tactical partner to defeat ISIS, because for the US, the partnership with NATO ally Turkey has always had the precedence, and Turkey sees the Kurds there, the SDF, as a existential threat to their, sovereignty, whatever. At the same time, they kept providing support and help to the jihadist rebels in Idlib and on those all other areas like Jolani, for example. They never stopped providing help to those jihadists, and they were providing help to them before they started helping the Kurds. And when they started helping the Kurds, they continued. The only reason why they started helping the Kurds is because the other jihadists were completely ineffective against ISIS. They would not fight them other than small skirmishes. So they needed to rein in ISIS in Syria because they upsetted a lot of the Americans' ambitions in Iraq. They took over Mosul. They didn't expect that. The mess with the Sinjar, the genocide of the Yazidis, the attacks all over Europe, the United States didn't expect a group to come up that strong and upset their regional ambitions. So that's the only reason why they supported the YPG, which you can see it today as what's been happening.
Well, there's also the conversation's a lot more complicated. We probably don't have time to delve into it, but the foundations of ISIS, including Jolani's involvement in ISIS as well, and also U.S. Gulf-backed intelligence and money. There is a major overlap there, kind of very complicated. Suffice to say, there is a kind of, I think, invisible hand steering events in the emergence.
Not complicated, really. They created them, armed them, financed them. They would not be here without American intervention.
They were launched, effectively given birth. In much the same way as the Operation Cyclone in Afghanistan with the Mujahideen, very similar blueprint, but more direct support, as you said, with Al-Nusra Front, which became HTS, and all these other Jaish al-Islam and Ahrar al-Sham, and this bevy of different, Al-Qaeda kind of in Syria factions.
They were competing with each other, though.
Yeah. More direct support. Whereas the ISIS, it was, I think, more opaque. And ISIS had a level of autonomy and activity that I think, an organization. So, I mean, it's a separate study, really looking at that. But back to Syria. So this is a good, as you mentioned, Al-Jolani is now the so-called self-appointed president of Syria as of December in the late December 2024. They march in to Damascus, and the sum of all fears is realized at this point. And so we'll bring you and bring everyone to this point in history now. And just a few weeks ago, Karim, when I saw this scene, I'm sure that you and many others were. I knew it was possible that this could happen, but I just, in the back of my mind, Karim, I thought that maybe somebody would brief the president that's probably not a good idea to have this photo op with the founder of Al-Qaeda in Syria, the former deputy of al-Baghdadi. His name is Mohammed al-Jolani, Abu Mohammed al-Jolani, now Ahmed al-Sharaa, supposedly is his latest name. Saudi-born, claims to be Syrian. He's there basically being legitimized by the president of the United States, who had a lot of good things to say about him. I mean, he was asked more than once, and he doubled down on his comments. We'll bring Donald Trump here. Listen to this. When asked about what he thought about this new Syrian leader, here he is.
Chance. I met the leader. I met the new leader, and handsome guy, by the way, young, handsome. And I said, you have quite a past. You've got a tough past. But when you think about it, are you going to put a choir boy in that position? I don't think so. It's going to be a little bit tough. It's a tough part of the world. So you're willing
to give him a shot?
You know the word they say, it's a nasty neighborhood. It's a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I thought he was really, I thought he was terrific. He was so thankful about the sanctions because he knew he's not going to be able to bust through.
So maybe it'll be a turn there. We'll see.
I think he has a real chance. He's a strong guy.
I mean, I'll hand it over to you, Karim. I personally, I really, speechless is really where I'm at, but go ahead.
Well, the writing was on the wall. At any rate, Bond Spears, it is not the first time he backstabbed the Kurds in the back. He has already done it in 2019 when he pulled all the troops. That German internationalist from my battalion, dear friend of mine I talked to you about, he was killed because of that Trump withdrawal. And then he stopped it in 2019. The Congress revolted against him. The generals revolted against him. He had to backtrack on it. And now he's basically doing the same thing. He's choosing Qatar. He's choosing Turkey. He's choosing Jolani. And it's interesting that he would say he's not a choir boy. That's very telling, in my opinion, because his hands, you may not see it in the pictures, but are dripping with the blood of thousands of Alawite, which he has just called for the massacres a few months back in March. And that was the bloodiest massacre since the start of the Syrian civil war, and has happened under his watch, carried by his men in the Syrian coastline. And you had one of the most Black Mirror things that I have ever seen. You had the EU Council main Twitter account supporting these massacres, this genocide, as was characterized by the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. And in 48 hours, they have killed 1,500 people. If you look at the area, it's a very small area. They burned villages to the ground, shot children and women in the face in their living room, kicking doors in. And the EU Council Twitter account said, we support the Syrian government, which means Jolani, against the provocation of the Assad remnants. And the social media was getting flooded with videos and images recorded by the perpetrators of these massacres themselves, which were self-documenting their war crimes. And it was atrocious to me because I was speaking with friends who are Alawites from the area, who were desperate, scared, terrorized. Many ran inside the Hamim airbase that was still in that area, the Russian airbase. They ran there, and they're still there. There is a refugee camp in that base because the Alawites don't feel safe going back home. And you had the entire global note, the entire EU Council, ICC, all these holier-than-thou institutions who were endorsing the massacre as it was happening. Trump going there and shaking his hand and making the comment about the choir boy sends a very strong message. Yeah, that's one of the most atrocious videos I've seen. Like, that's a mother, and those dead on the floor, those are her children. And she's standing up to the jihadists who just killed her children, and they were telling her, you're not allowed to bury them. They have to stay under the sun. And I don't know if you know this, it's very creepy, but if the body stays under the sun, it becomes black. It immediately, it's not like movies, it becomes rotten, zombie-like. And to say that to a mother, which has all her children dead in front of her, and they were unarmed. As you can see, they don't have a shirt because they had them take off the shirt to see if they had weapons hidden. They didn't have them, obviously, and they shot them point blank and killed them. And that has happened at a rate which is thousands in 48 hours. So Trump sends a message to the rest of Syria and to the world, along with the EU Council, along with the ICC, Amir Khan. And what they're saying is, Karim Khan, sorry. What they're saying is, we know that these guys are jihadists because I had EU Council members talk to me and tell me in private. We know these guys going to do massacres, but we expect it. It's inevitable. In their minds, it's inevitable. But they are trying to let foreign investments in. They are privatizing, and they're letting us basically rob Syria blind, extract Syria's resources. And as long as the capital market is allowed to do whatever it wants in Syria and buy it for cheap, because now there is a big auction happening on Syria, it's on its knees, the economy is ruined, the country is destroyed, and all these vultures are circling and trying to break deals and strong-arm Jolani. He was happy to, sell pieces off of Syria as long as they allow him to do whatever he wants. And unfortunately, this is just a prelude of what's going to happen in the future, because I believe we're a long time from seeing the last bullet shot and the massacre take place.
Yeah, and listen, it's so funny that for 12 or 15 years, the Western chorus of the media was Assad the butcher, Assad must go, we must bring down the government of Syria, and the rebels need to liberate the country. And so this is the liberation, which is a sectarian bloodbath. And it's not as if we didn't see it coming, Karim. Many of us were warning about this from 2011. We knew, we heard the chants, Christians to Beirut, Alawites to the grave. We heard those chants in Banyas and other places as early as 2011. So it already was taking on that sort of a shape, and that was being encouraged by the Americans, encouraged by the British, encouraged by the Turks. So the same, and of course the Israelis, quietly have been supporting this destabilization of Syria. But it's so funny that when they put sanctions on Syria, which are crippling sanctions designed to strangle the country, they said it's because of the Assad regime. It needs to be on because of the government. And now they're saying the same people who were imposing those sanctions for all those years, they're saying, well, they need to be lifted because it's hurting the people. So suddenly it's not about the leadership, it's about the people. So the hypocrisy, especially from the West, shouldn't shock anybody. But nonetheless, Karim, you being from a European country, the EU has played a direct role in the strangulation of Syria. Together with the US, they did a double, a vice grip, if you will, unprecedented strangulation intended to punish the country, the people. It's incredible. So it's time has shown what hypocrisy this is. But now, what is the state of Syria, Karim? What is the current state, the current situation in the country? How bad is it?
It's very bad. And it's gotten worse since Jolani took over. From even an economic standpoint, imagine that Assad had, for his faults, had bakeries which were all over the place, even in Raqqa, where ISIS was, or in the northeastern Syria. He had bakeries, and he kept subsidizing those bakeries with state funds. So nobody would go hungry. And that happened even before the Syrian civil war. But he kept doing it. He kept paying for paychecks of essential workers, like in dams or electric factories and all those essential infrastructures that, like communication, antennas. That's a funny thing. People don't know that. ISIS had antennas from Syrian Telecom, and workers that were getting their paychecks from the Assad regime. Like the guy with the paycheck would reach them inside ISIS territory, in the core of ISIS territory, to pay those workers, and ISIS would not blink because they knew they needed the antennas to work for themselves too, other than for the people. So those are aspects of the Ba'athist socialist state that Assad had kept going on, with all its faults. The day after Jolani took over, that was over with. And it's interesting because for me, the turning point when I understood, okay, it's over. For the Kurds, it's over. For everyone, they're going to give it to him, was when Tony Blair he's appointed foreign minister, which is also a long-standing member of Al-Qaeda. There are pictures of him in fatigue and Kalashnikov in hand. When he invited him to Davos and gave him that interview, which looked even more embarrassing than Trump calling handsome jihadi Jolani, because they laughed, the humor was very light, and he gave him softball after softball question. And they were like two friends who finally met each other after 10 years. And in that interview, Shibani, Assad, which is he has a name that's very similar, said, we're going to privatize and we're going to open our markets for foreign investments, because that's something we need to take Syria back. And that was the key question, because when he said that, you could see Tony Blair smile from ear to ear. And that was the magic word, privatization. And you transform your Hilux Honda with a Dodge mounted on back into a private jet. You transform your military fatigue into a very nice tailored suit of $20,000, like Rolex watch or Philippe Patek, whatever. And you get to join the dream of the neoliberal world. And that was when everything changed. The day after Jolani took over, the prices of bread in Syria doubled, and the size of bread diminished half its size. I'm not even joking. Like the day after, he took all the subsidies out, sent them God knows where, because those subsidies were there. He had the money for the subsidies because Assad had them. He took over the bank. All the subsidies were gone. The price of the bread doubled in a country where 85% of the people are living under poverty line, where people can't afford bread, even people who work, even people who were in the military couldn't afford bread for themselves and their families, where IDPs are still by the hundreds of thousands living in camps, where you have cholera, all kinds of diseases, child mortality to the roof, no job whatsoever, infrastructure is completely destroyed, and a humongous debt that the country incurred thanks to all the sanctions and the cutoff from the foreign market. So he's taken over a country, and now he's privatizing, and the people already don't have bread, and the level of misery is going up on a level of magnitude.
Yeah. And so the currency, of course, still in free fall. That's by design. Economy was attacked very early on in 2010 and 2011, and the attack kept going. And this is a formula that's been deployed against Venezuela, many other countries. It's very well-known economic warfare, not even counting sanctions, just attacking the currency and the balance of payments, the gold reserves, emptying all that out. And so Turkey's even actually been hit with a little taster of that as well from the West. But so that's the situation. I think you've identified it pretty well. This regime is how he calls himself a president. This guy is unbelievable because he has no parliament, and there's been no plebiscite. There's been no even demand to have elections, which is normally standard whenever there's a coup. And the U.S. and Britain would go in, when is the schedule for the elections? Is it September? And they help to prepare them. They bring in their sort of OECD, CE, and all these organizations to come and help organize the elections. None of that. Jolani just said, maybe in 4 or 5 years. We're not really bothered about this democracy thing, but I'm the president. So it's just.
But they started saying first 1 month, and then we're gonna bring everyone together and write a constitution, and then they said 3 months. We just need to check the files, and then they said 5 years. And I guess when the 5-year marks get closer, they're gonna say something else. I have this feeling.
That was one of the basis for selling the sanctions package against the Assad government. Is he's not rewriting the constitution. He's not doing the reforms that we demand. And then this guy comes in and basically he takes it to a whole nother level of tyranny, and they're lifting sanctions. So it's like there's no consistency at all. But what's more dangerous, I think, is this legitimization of the West coming in to shake hands, to court an international terrorist, and not just any international terrorist, one of the top international terrorists, a real killer. They were doing street executions in Idlib when they were running their little Islamic state there. And funny enough, Trump is the one that helped to basically undermine the counteroffensive in Idlib. And Trump even bragged about it publicly at a rally. He said, I saved Idlib, and the people in Idlib, they love me. I say he saved 35,000 terrorists. So this coup would not have happened, or the fall of Damascus would not have happened, if not for Trump in 2018, and Erdogan as well. So that brings us to another question here. And firstly, Karim, what is the potential right now for a civil war? We saw Marco Rubio telegraphing this idea. He's obviously let some cat out of the bag. He said Syria could descend into a bloody civil war in a matter of weeks. He said a few weeks ago. So obviously he's been fed something by U.S. Intelligence there. I personally think that's on the cards, and the U.S. wants to stay there. That's number one priority. Israel wants what it wants, but we'll get to what all these actors want around Syria. But tell me about the potential for sectarian fighting right now and the possible breakup of Syria, a bloody civil war. Is that a major risk right now?
Yes, it is. If you think about it, Trump went there guns blazing, but he didn't consult any Kurds. No Kurds were there with him. And since he took over office, he never mentioned the SDF or the Kurds. It's like they don't exist. Like if you listen to Trump, his comms or the people close to him, it's like the SDF or the northeastern Syria, it's no place whatsoever. It's like it doesn't exist. You will not find it in any of their transcripts, not even mentioned. So he went there and he told Jolani, I believe that the reason why, and I wrote it in a tweet, in a thread, which has been quoted by some relevant newspapers recently, some legacy newspapers. I noticed that the company that has bought the port of Latakia for 30 years is actually a Chinese front. Like it's a French company on paper, but actually it's a Chinese front. And there is a lot of documentation proving it. And so China moved in while Trump was was trying to strong arm Jolani. And then he ran for the fences. He couldn't allow, like, his whole thing is that he wanted to leave the Middle East to focus on China. And then China sweeps in the Middle East and takes over one of the key nodes of trades in the entire Mediterranean. That's the most important port. Like the other port, Russia's still there, by the way, and the other port, China takes it over. The port has exclusive rights for China. The China does whatever it wants with that port. It's like it's a part of Chinese land. And the agreement says that they're gonna split the revenue. 60 goes to Syria, 40 goes to China, but China doesn't really care about the revenue. They're full of ports around there. They'll have it in Lebanon, they have it in Greece, they have it in Europe, in Marseille. What they care about is having a base there and having control, surveillance, and it allows them to project their influence in the entire region, especially the Middle East. They didn't have a port in that place. So Trump noticed. Probably they didn't publicize it because China never brags about their victories, and Trump didn't wanna let people know that he's a moron. So he ran for the fences, and that explains all that very boyfriend-girlfriend talks. That, like, it's not normal that you meet a jihadist overlord and call him handsome man and use all those kind of attributes that he has given him. Not a Boy Scout and all that. But what he promised him in exchange for joining the Abraham Accord and normalizing with Israel was, I'm going to give you the 9,000 ISIS prisoners currently held by the SDF in Hasakeh, in the Golani prison. And that's a big no-no for the SDF. They haven't lost 12,000 of their youth, because that's the price for fighting ISIS, 12,000 of your best young men that have died since 2014 in a 10-year span in a very small region. Like, people think northeastern Syria is, I don't know, it's smaller than New York in terms of population. It's very depopulated sliver of land. There are not many people there. Losing that much of your youth, mostly Kurdish, it's a big blow for the Kurds there and for the people. So giving 9,000 of hardcore ISIS fighters back to Jolani, it's a suicide for them. Like, we're going to give you these 9,000 hardcore fighters, the best fighters of ISIS, those who survived. Among them, there is probably the real caliph of ISIS, because you have all these media, probably ran by Langley at this point, which are portraying messaging from ISIS, and it's like ISIS still exists. But really, if you look at it, ISIS now, it's mainly African. Like, there is an African group which is very active in Africa, and they are the main group, which is they got the main, they're ISIS main now, let's say. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a leadership still in place, which is confined among those 9,000 fighters, which is the majority of ISIS combatants, the majority of ISIS ideologues. They're all there. Once Jolani liberates them, these guys will all swear allegiance to Jolani. Either they swear allegiance to Jolani, or they get to see all their wives marrying Al-Qaeda people under Jolani command, because their wives are held in a separate camp, which is a concentration camp, Al-Hol, and there are around 40,000 women and children there. It's a tragedy what has happened with that camp. I fought with so many people, argued so many people that we should not have any part in it, because that's the new Camp Bucca. That's where they're trying to grow the new generation of jihadist extremists. Yep. And those children growing there will be 100% ISIS extremists, and you give them no other choice. Like, you literally made them, and if they come and they shoot me, I'll say, I deserve it. I put you in there. Like, that bullet, it's a revenge that I deserve, because you didn't deserve that. No child does. And giving back those to Al-Jolani would mean that Al-Jolani will have an unstoppable army, will have ISIS under his umbrella. And even like now we are in a situation where the Kurds, the SDF, can put up a fight if the Turks don't intervene. And they might very well not intervene because there are like peace talks going on with PKK, which has dissolved and all that. Without Turkish intervention, they have a chance. If they free those 9,000 hardcore fighters, they have no chance. Because those 9,000, they might be a bit, rusty since they've been sitting in jail for like almost 10 years. But I can assure you, they could be very well better than the entire army Jolani has right now.
Yeah. And also, the magical reappearance of ISIS in Syria will guarantee U.S. stays and bulks up their presence, expands their presence, not just in Syria, in Iraq. And isn't that what Washington has been looking for, is some kind of a card to reestablish their footing or legitimacy of their footing there, because the Iraqis didn't want them. The new Iraqi parliaments three times publicly kicked them out. The U.S. said, we're not leaving. I don't personally think anybody in Syria other than Jolani, who's friendly with America at the moment, wants them there. But that's what the U.S. wants, because that's what Israel wants. Israel needs the U.S. there for other reasons, broader strategic reasons, to do probably with an attack on Iran, among other things. And that brings us to the next point, Karim. What is the agenda? And we'll go down one by one. Let's start with Israel. Let's start with America, and let's look at Turkey. In the Gulf, Qatar, Saudi Arabia is clearly interested now, as they've always have been. But starting with Israel, and then we'll move to the Americans, then to the Turks. What is the agenda for Syria, as you see it?
Well, Israel has been for a long time trying to use the Kurds in Syria as a card, but they always, if you remember a few months ago, there was a lot of comms coming from the foreign ministry of Israel, Netanyahu himself, trying to tend a hand to the Kurds, and you never seen anything coming back. The only thing you could have seen is Massoud Abdi in an interview saying, we accept help from everyone, but he didn't want to even say Israel, because people don't understand it. It's so deep, the relationship they have with the Palestinian resistance. The HDP in Turkey, which is the political party part of the KJK, that has seats in the parliament. In 2019, if I'm not mistaken, Leila Khalid from PLFP, the PLFP leader, went there and she spoke from the podium of the HDP to hundreds of Kurds who were there. She showed solidarity, and that's not an easy thing to do for a Palestinian, because they count on the Turkish support. And for the PLFP to go there, to the main spokeswoman in this case of the PLFP, to go there and take a stand in that moment during the election, by the way, with the Kurds, was like a big political move that had some very deep repercussions that we're not going to go over. But it was not a good thing for the PLFP. They had a lot of criticism for Hamas because of that. And you have also pictures of the previous leader of Hamas, which has been assassinated with the leader, with Salahatin Demirtas, which is the leader of the HDP, now jailed by Erdogan. And you have letters that Salahatin Demirtas wrote. Like, there are a lot of communications out there. Like, the relationship is strong, is an old relationship, has deep roots. On the other hand, Israel has tried to play them anyway as a card because of their reliance on American support. And the Americans are there. They didn't retreat in 2019 because the Congress revolted against Trump when he tried to pull out all the troops as soon as he took office. After a phone call with Erdogan, nobody knew that he had that in his mind, not even his generals. He just told them point blank, let's go. The reason he stopped, it isn't because the Kurds have a lobby, and it isn't because the Congress found a conscience. The American Congress has no conscience. They're all bought and paid for by AIPAC. The reason is because the Kurdish lobby stopped American retreat in 2019. The Israeli lobby, the Zionist lobby, stopped American retreat, and the Kurds are aware of that. So they tried until the last moment to take the Kurds and try to reassure them that we're going to give you the guarantees that you need to go against Turkey, to go against Jolani. But Öcalan's letter came out, the one that brought the dissolution of the PKK. And in that letter, it said very clearly that the Kurds had to find a settlement within the nation where they were hosted. So in Turkey, they had to find it with the Turkish government. In Syria, they had to find it with the Syrian government, even though the Syrian government is led by Ahmed al-Sharaa, aka Jolani. The Kurds decided, and it's a very, I'm against it. I don't support that decision. I don't think they should have went, Mazloum Abdi should have went and shook hands with Ahmed al-Sharaa, aka Jolani, on the eve of, while the Syrian coastline massacre was taking place of the Alawite. Actually, he rescued him somehow, because when he went there to shake his hands, he saved the EU conference that took place 10 days after that, where the EU unlocked those 5 billion package for Syria and took off some of the sanctions. Jolani was supposed to go there himself, and he couldn't go after that massacre. He had to send his foreign minister. But if, and here's the thing, those officials, the EU officials, von der Leyen, her right-hand woman, and all that, they spoke about their optimism thanks to that deal that Mazloum Abdi has done with Jolani. So that allowed them the political excuse to have Hayat Tahrir al-Sham militants coming to Europe and getting 5 billion euro, because they're saying, look, there is a historical, they called it a historical deal between the Syrian interim government, which they call right now, and the Syrian Democratic Forces. You see, they call them Syrian Democratic Forces. They didn't call it the Democratic Autonomous Administration of Northeast Syria. They don't, even the EU don't recognize the political project. For them, they're just like a mercenary army with rifles fighting ISIS. That's all they are. They don't recognize the fact that it's a woman-led revolution. They don't recognize the autonomy project, the democratic project, the grassroots democracy. Nothing. It's only a militia that fights against ISIS, and that's where we want them to be. So Israel wants to see Syria weakened, but Israel needs, in my opinion, to have all its neighbor weakened. They have to have dictators, which are dictators that are US puppets. They need everyone around them to be weak. Because if the people, everywhere, if the people can, be them Jordanian, Egyptian, Syrian, or whatever, if the people can have a say, it's war with Israel. It's nothing short of that. It has never happened in the history of mankind that you have a minority being butchered, not even a minority, but a group of people being butchered, like the Palestinians in Gaza. We were seeing a genocide happening, and all around them you have people of the same ethnic group that speak the same language, of the same culture, of the same religion, doing nothing. Nothing. And that is unprecedented. Like, you have to have every country weak, every country dependent on foreign aid, every country scared of Israel and scared of the United States, with dictators in place that don't do the will of the people, and then you can have a chance of surviving. That's the only way the state of Israel can survive. And that's basically their policy all over the place. Going back to Turkey, Turkey has another ambition, which is the I call them the Neo-Ottoman klepto-sultanate, because it's a klepto-sultanate. It's not even a democracy anymore. They arrested the main Kemalist secular opposition, which has nothing to do with the Kurds, actually hates the Kurds historically. And they arrested, basically Erdogan arrested the opponent who was projected to beat him in the elections. He arrested them. And he arrested all kinds of, closed all kinds of newspapers. Turkey is a dictatorship in all but name. And their ambitions in Turkey is to basically go over their borders. Their idea is like to project their influence all over the ex-Ottoman enclaves and even go further. So that's their idea. They want to externalize war. But make no mistake, the Turkish economy is on its knees. Like if you look at the Turkish lira, it's terrible. So it's somehow the Turkish elite needs these expansion in war and victories, military victories, to deflect from their internal problems, because they have many.
And we'll go back to Turkey in a moment, Karim, but let's just look at this map here of the Golan Heights. And so Israel moved very quickly after the collapse of the Syrian Arab Army. The Assad government of Damascus took the Golan Heights, took Mount Hermon. These are strategically invaluable. It's very unlikely, in my estimation and others, that they'll ever give these back. You might eventually become an expansion of Israeli territory. Gives them firing range over Damascus, artillery range, southern Lebanon as well. Huge strategic advantage. So that was done without, firing a shot, really. I mean, they then took out the whole of the Syrian air defenses, the whole of the Syrian military. So Syria basically has no real defense. They've, like a matador, just waved the rag and allowed the bull to come right in. But that's not the end of it. But I mean, just what we're looking at here, I mean, this was not possible before December, because Syria would have put up a fight to defend. It was a stalemate, effectively, up to that point. And these two countries have been at war, or Syria and Israel, for many decades. And this has all changed. And so now the Israeli momentum is, are they going to stop here? Because I would think that I wouldn't stop if I was Israel. I'd keep going. What are your thoughts on this situation?
I think, honestly, the moment Trump shook hands with Jolani, Israel is behind that also. I don't believe Trump could have went against the Zionist lobby. I just don't believe that for a second. And that's why there was the Abraham Accord there. And that's why now we have talks between Israeli officials and officials that are men of Ahmed al-Sharaa, of Jolani. And those talks are ongoing. Jolani offered to join the Abraham Accord, offered normalization, offered to arrest and expel all pro-Palestinians and Palestinian factions that were hosted by Assad. So we have Palestinian groups within Syria. They already been arrested and expelled, by the way. So he is giving Israel all that Israel wants. Plus, he's has a very aggressive posture toward Lebanon, toward Hezbollah, and toward Iran. So I believe that when Trump went there and shook his hands, that was Israel making a play. And I believe that if Jolani were to sign the Abraham Accord and become basically the infantry of ISIS to be deployed against Iran, they may be okay with that. At the end of the day, those strategic positions are valuable, but they have no value in terms of economy. Like they withdraw from, they've taken the basin, the water basin that confined with Jordan, and then they left it. That would have been important in terms of resource. But those mountain ranges that they have taken over, they don't have much in terms of value, in terms of resources. And I don't think they want to take the Druze with them. The Druze, for them, they were like just a bargaining chip, something to use, to give them an excuse to go in. I still believe it was the right thing that they went in and defended the Druze, because it would look like what happened in the Syrian coast could have happened next to them, and there was nobody to defend them. Let's remember, even the leader of the Alawites, during those days of genocide, of genocidal butchery, he called into Israel to help them. He called in everyone to help, anyone who could come there to rescue them. Because when you're seeing children being butchered by the hundreds and women being shot in the face in their own homes, and the international community silent, and by the way, no newspaper was reporting on it either, even though the social media were being flooded by those images that you just saw, that you've just shown. Desperation kicks in, and anyone's game. So the Druze historically, they don't like much Israel, those who stay in Syria. Like historically they've been with Assad. But between being second-class citizens within Israel and being butchered, I think they would choose the first option. Having said that, if Jolani does everything that Israel wants him to do, I don't see them try to take a fight with him at the end. But in my opinion, Jolani is playing the long game, even against Israel. Like many people, that's where I disagree with many people. Many people say, Jolani is a Zionist prop. It's just there to do Israel's interests, American interests, and so on and so forth. But this guy has risen through the ranks of ISIS, and he wasn't the son of an emir. He was a young university students who have been arrested in Camp Bucca and put there with all the terrorists that allowed them to form ISIS, the modern ISIS, which has been born between in a merger of ex-Ba'athist officials, generals, and jihadists who didn't have the technical capability to build a state that the ex-Ba'athist officials from Assad had. And he rose through those ranks inside the Iraqi insurgency, and he didn't do it by making cupcakes. He did it by you have to be extremely violent, extremely ideological for them to allow you to rise through those ranks. It's extremely selective. There are so many that try to make it and they die along the way, they blow themselves up, they get targeted by airstrikes. He's been able to raise, or they get assassinated by the organization themselves. When they go against the ideological framework or the orders or whatever. He rose through those ranks while having extreme sense of survival, like a cockroach. He survived American bounties, American airstrikes. He cut deal with whomever had to cut deal with in terms to make it out. And he decided to become moderate when he saw ISIS go up in flame. But until 2013, he was 100% aligned with ISIS. And after 2013, he was still allied with ISIS ideologically. He just had a disagreement on who should be the leader with al-Baghdadi. And Al-Qaeda took his side, and he became the main man of Al-Qaeda, and al-Baghdadi became a Khawarij, which basically for Al-Qaeda, al-Baghdadi was somehow a kuffar in some sense, outside of the religion. And he cut ties with Al-Qaeda again when he understood that the air was getting a bit dangerous, too much risk to be targeted by American airstrikes. And he started becoming the man of the United States, and they started helping him take out his competition in Idlib, Ahrar al-Sham, all these other factions who are still like sympathetic with Al-Qaeda. He fought them one by one, eliminated them one by one, a little bit like Cesare Borgia in that sense. He called meetings. There was this famous meeting he called everyone to make peace. He was fighting all these other factions, and he killed everyone in the room, or arrested everyone, or poisoned this guy, or assassinated this guy after telling him, we're cool, man. And there's just this guy was found dead, and he was like the leader of this other faction. So he's extremely intelligent, but I believe that the reason why he became moderate is because he became moderate in 2018. 2018 was the time where ISIS collapsed completely. The last city, Raqqa, was completely destroyed, taken over. And Boghuz, there was the big surrender of 40,000 ISIS military. That was the end of ISIS. And he understood, I cannot do like ISIS. I can't build an Islamic state, in my opinion. I cannot build an Islamic state and go against all these powers. I have to play the long game. I have to play the moderate. I have to say the things they want me to say. And he knows what the West wants. He wants money. He wants privatizations, wants liberal talk. And he has been doing all that. And he has been rewarded for it. Now he has a chance to build an army. And I believe if he doesn't get corrupted by money and power, and the nice cushy seat of a first-class airplane ticket to Saudi Arabia and partying with the Prince Ibn Salman, if all those things don't corrupt him, he will eventually launch the ultimate offensive. His name for the most of his adult life has been Al-Jolani, which means Golan Heights. His name was a note to liberate the Syrian land occupied by Israel. Until 2019, when he started playing the moderate, his speeches, in every speech, he talks about liberating Al-Aqsa. So it comes down to it. Either he's playing the moderate, and Israel, that's why Israel is a bit reticent still, and he will sign the Abraham Accord, do whatever he needs to do while building his Islamic army, which seems like he's doing, honestly. Or he really became moderate, and in that case, he will be assassinated within the year.
Well, it's pretty clear that one of his main sponsors, the person he could thank the most for his ascension and his survival, if you will, is someone we like to call Karim Abu Donald here on the program. There's no doubt about it. Abu Donald has been his greatest sponsor and asset. So isn't that something that he would take him under his wing like this for 2 terms now, the first term and the second term. So, I mean, we laugh about this, but there's not like a serious thread of truth in this as well. But before we go, Karim, because we've gone a little bit over time here, but it's such an important topic, and I really appreciate you, getting into the granular details of this. We just got a couple of minutes left, and tell us, because everybody wants to know what the situation with Turkey is. Does Turkey have territorial ambitions over parts of Syria? Is that the long game of the AKP New Turkey project led by Erdogan, but not for long? He probably is not going to be in politics much longer. He'll be resigned to the Godfather position. But what is Turkey's goal? What is their actual material endgame? What do you think?
All right, so this is actually tied with Israel. So they want to pass a pipeline through Syria. And that pipeline would go from Syria and have Turkey as the main sponsor of it and go straight to Europe. That pipeline would cut off Israel from being the main, being supplier, being a key point. Like Israel has always played this role of trying to make itself essential, because essentially they are like a colonialist, a settler colonial outpost of the West in the Middle East. And they always try to keep themselves in that position to be useful to, tech, whatever. If this pipeline passes through Syria and then goes from Turkey to Europe, it would cut them completely off, and they want to have a piece of it. So in Syria, Turkey wants to project, like they want to take back in terms of influence Syria. They want Syria to be an extension of Turkish foreign policy. So all their trade deals, all that, they want Syria to do what the Turkish government say, and that's been the case so far. Like Jolani has tried to play the independent, but so far he has been directed pretty closely from Hakan Fidan, which is the current foreign minister of Turkey, has been the leader of MIT, which is the Turkish Secret Service, for the past 10 years. Everything that has happened in Syria since then had his fingerprints on it, false flags, you name it. And he knows intimately Jolani. So if they take over the economy of Syria and they can make these pipelines and have complete access to gas, oil, all the resources within Syria, exploration of water, because remember Turkey has that big problem of the AZZ, yeah, like with the Greek island taking over all the territorial water of Turkey, which Turkey contests. Having the possibility to access the Syrian national waters for gas exploration is a big thing. So there are a lot of resources and key strategic interests in terms of having Syria as a conduit for these pipelines that would be able to reach Europe and cut off somehow the reliance on Russia. And that has been basically the game so far, but it doesn't stop to Syria because Turkey wants to take back Iraq too, and they've been very active there also. So we will see what happens, but Turkey has always been doing the interest of Turkey. So even in their Iran stance, they don't really care about the Israeli ambitions on Iran, the problems with Iran. When Iran was sanctioned, Turkey has played the role of using their banks to launder all the money and allow Iran to bypass all those sanctions. That's why the Turkish president of bank has been indicted in the United States, and there are all that going on. So they want to extend their influence outward, mainly because the Turkish elite, there is a Turkish elite that has, we see it in Bayraktar, we see it in all these energy company, needs to expand outward. That's why they're building all those fleet for like blue water fleets, and it's all part of these neo-Ottoman klepto sultanate that wants to extend outward and make new deals. And like kudos for them. That's a very like the KJK, for example, have a lecture on this, and they look at the previous war, previous Iraqi-Iranian war, and that was, in terms of economy output, the golden age for Turkey, because they were able to leverage both countries, Iran and Iraq, and do deals with both of them. They couldn't trade among each other. So for the Turkish economy, it was like really booming because everything had to pass through them, and they became the power center. That's what actually allowed them to have such a fast growth during that, because it happened during that time. So that's what they're looking at. They're looking at trying to leverage countries and become the middleman that makes money from both sides, basically.
Makes sense as well. And it probably, truth be known, the Turkish influence in Syria at the moment is probably one of the only things I think is keeping Russia somewhat secure in its very tenuous position there. Kudos to Russia for taking in so many Alawite refugees and housing, thousands of them on their air base when they wouldn't be receiving any protection outside of those walls. And it's a very, very difficult and very tenuous and complicated, very explosive situation in Syria. And we could get into other aspects of this as well, but I think I think it's a good introductory discussion, and perhaps we can reconvene again, Karim, and maybe focus on some more strategic discussions and maybe a little more geopolitics as well. But we really appreciate you coming on, sharing your background and experience, your unique experience with this particular part of the world, with Syria. And of course, you've got roots there in different ways, emotional roots, your own personal history, relationships, friendships with the community there, with the country. So I know it's in your interest. You want to see the best possible outcome for the people there. And you're very concerned about the regime that's in power, as many are in Damascus. So I think a lot of people can relate to your positions and your sympathies and your concerns on this. So, but Karim, let me bring up onto the screen your social media account, because it's a good sort of portal here. Well, hold on, we'll bring this up on screen. 1 second, we'll just bring that down and bring this back up here onto the screen. That is your X account. Karim Franceschi. And I see your book's in Italian, not yet in English. I don't know if you translated any of them yet, but I know they're in Italian.
Yeah, they've been translated in Finnish, Turkish, a few other languages, but never in English.
Okay, well, that's something we can, hopefully you can work on in the near future, so people can get a little more in-depth, granular look into, things that you observed and experienced there during that really important time. So we got links to your social media in our show page as well. It'll take people directly there. And if you're in Italy, you've done quite a few interviews with the Italian media, Karim as well, on this topic. So we want to hopefully be able to, hear more about this from you going forward. But thank you for joining us on the Sunday Wire this week.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much.
And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That is Karim Franceschi. You can learn more and listen to what he's putting out from his X feed there. And again, we'll continue this conversation going forward. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. Let's take a break. And we're going to go and pivot to Overdrive. And we've got a couple of our colleagues hopefully waiting in the wings to talk about some other important stories in the United States. There's quite a few things to cover as well. So we'll be doing that and more after the break. Stay with us. This is the Sunday Wire, live right across every channel conceivable. We'll see you in a second.
All of the pictures left unpainted, all of the games they left unplayed, all the laughter in the playground, all of the arts they never made. Ghost faces of a million Palestinian children. All of those voices left in silence, all with their names written in kind, lest their bodies pulled from rubble, lifeless empty dolls to find. Ghost faces of a million Palestinian children. What of the songs they've never written? What of the words they'll never sing? And the darkness of the nightmare, inescapable that rings. The ghost faces of a million Palestinian children. I hear the crying, helpless children, God's most precious and most dear. I hear them begging for the reason. How could you ever leave us here? I close the eyelids of a million Palestinian children. So what do we really stand for? Is this how our future's made? And when we ever find the courage to stand up unafraid, I tear away the persecution of the Palestinian children. Rise up and be the guardians of the Palestinian children. To respect our obligation, every creed and every nation, 'cause every soul deserves protection. Save the Palestinian children. Save the Palestinian children.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me the profound honor of addressing this great citadel of democracy for the fourth time.
And thanks for bombs that wreck Gaza one more time. For helping me pin it on Iran, that's the crime. Let me spin you a tale, talk you in its bedtime.
Our world is in upheaval.
We brand our foes as evil, it's our goal to spell. Labels ready-made, we wield them well. Terrorists, anti-Semites, animals all on sale. Every option laid out, no detail is too frail. Let me share my plan, it's all about me. Survival's the goal, friends, just let me be. Uncle Sam sends dollars, bombs, arms, endlessly. Through twisted lenses, he pretends to see clearly. I could quote the Bible, but that's just for show. It's occupation versus civilization, as you know. Accusations by confession, the truth's on a low. Decades of incarceration, yet you clap for the show.
We win, they lose.
I can't breathe anymore, this noose is too tight. Just not as I blame in the dead of the night. We're criminals in truth, but that's our plight. Gentlemen in the headlines, painted in white.
Suddenly, heaven turned into hell.
We raised the homes, gave the order to shell. Bomb schools, mosque, hotels, there's more to tell. Not just that, hospitals fell as well. Thank you, madams and sirs, for funding this hell.
I thank President Biden for his heartfelt support for Israel.
Think this ain't real, it's all colonial play. Joe helps me claim defense in the broad daylight. Good man he is, though his words sway, supporting me, even when his talk's not right. They killed with rage, Arab women, kids in their prime. Gaza's an open-air cage, living on borrowed time. More deaths on the way, they sworn the crime. So we pin badges of courage in this bloody rhyme. On God's green earth, am I ranting about? I'll take you on a ride, no doubt. I can't lie about genocide, that's out. Humanity's priceless, funds are what it's about. They call it occupation, a regime of hate. A racist dream built on a bloodthirsty state. Causing death, grief and pain at every gate. Yet I stand here and you still wait. And what I'm doing, I stand up in the skies, playing the victim, that's my prize. But ouch, they're burning me in effigy skies.
And I want to say thank you, America.
I love you and your hamburgers, that's no bluff. My soldiers loved you as pampers, just enough. No more Octobers, but we had our stuff. And we were the symbol of heroic grace. Not apartheid or racist in any place. Butter wouldn't melt in my mouth, no trace. From north to south, where the embrace face.
They call Israel a colonialist state.
I think I'm kidding, grab the Times, take a read. Ask the White House, they're trying to lead, but they need more training to follow my creed.
That Iran is funding and promoting anti-Israel protests in America. They want to disrupt America.
Think of Iran, my arms go weak, my mouth goes sour. Let's find a new land to devour. Their might threatens our tower, hour by hour. Victory's near, but is it on my side? Defeating the enemies where I can fight, but that's not in me. So prayers I need, and tax dollars, so my plans can proceed. We aim to make Gaza unlivable, our Nobel Prize. Then find a new place to colonize. Take the world back from the infidel guys. Make this region a 5-star paradise. Thank you, my lies have reached their demise.
Israel does not seek to resettle Gaza.
My lies have reached their demise. Thank you, my lies.
Welcome back to the Sunday Wire. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. Thank you for rejoining us. I mean, what an amazing conversation with Karim Franceschi. I mean, we haven't had, a discussion like that with that level of granular detail about Syria, about his experience there. So there's a very unique position that he had, a very unique viewpoint, plus being from Europe as well, and being, multilingual. He is a great resource and obviously knows a lot about not just what's happening there and what is about to happen, but understanding the mechanics of it with so many different international actors at play. So again, big thank you to Karim, and we'll try to continue that conversation, have a follow-up interview with him, getting a little more specific on a couple of key areas strategically about what's happening with the U.S. and Israel and an impending attack on Iran. We didn't get there during that discussion, but we will. We will come back to that. But seeing that we are in overdrive, I'm going to welcome one of our teammates up onto the stage right now, Bryan McClain, also known to some as Hesher, in a very strange environment, looks like a tunnel. So, He's in below a hospital, according to Netanyahu.
Yep. Safest in a bunker, always.
Yes, indeed. And I don't know if you caught any of that discussion. I mean, we went a little bit over. We went a lot over time on that. But, I was just really getting really involved in what he was talking about, because, the level of insight and detail that Karim has on this situation, I think, is very unique. So it was a really valuable discussion, and I'm sure you could have a really interesting discussion with him as well, Hesher, because he was getting into the logistics of firearms and heavy equipment and military tactics as well. But I found that to be one of the better discussions we've had on that subject in a long time.
Oh yeah, I was admiring the Mosin Nagant in the photo there. A good friend of ours, I'm not going to call him out, but a good friend of ours owns a Mosin Nagant. I've got to shoot it before. It's really fun to shoot. I don't know if it's necessarily something I would want to take into modern warfare. So that really says something about the grit there of Karim and many other soldiers out there using dated materials. So I had an interesting time with that. And yeah, I also found the discussion about Turkey near the end there to be valuable and interesting, because I've been trying to understand what's going on there, especially with the jailing of the main opposition. And I've always been interested in sort of that neo-Ottoman Empire. What would that look like? So I feel like I got a bit more context in my thinking on that. So it was a really good discussion. Appreciate you guys for that.
Yeah, and Turkey's becoming incredibly important, a real pivot for the new Middle East, and of course the situation Ukraine and with Russia. Turkey is very much underpinning a lot of the geopolitics of that as well. So increasingly important, and we've assembled quite a few people that we think are some of the best on that topic, which we'll be bringing on. So hopefully we'll have some good roundtable discussions about that. Obviously, we're praying, Hesher, that this isn't going to careen into World War III. That's just the subtext of all this. So just so people are clear, we don't want to see that happen. Absolutely. We'd like the analysis to be somewhat, on the side of all of that potential, talking about how we can put the region back together and have some peace and stability. But things are looking very dicey at the moment between Tel Aviv, Tehran, and Washington right now. I'm not, and just start off with the U.S. conversation, Hesher. I'm not terribly optimistic about what I'm seeing from the Trump administration. I'm not optimistic about the Palestinian-Israeli negotiations. I'm not optimistic about the Iranian negotiations, nor the Ukraine-Russia negotiations. All three seem to be going south, with Mr. Witkoff, like the head waiter, juggling all these plates, but potentially he could drop all of them. That's the feeling I get. I don't know what your impression is. Fox thinks Witkoff is the second coming of, he's a foreign policy messiah, that he's this amazing savant. I don't see it like that. I don't know if you get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, Fox, they have gone into that mode that you've described multiple times on the show that they go into when we have a Republican president, and they are just softballing everybody and pedestaling everybody. It's just like it's like a dog and pony show over there. I watched Bongino on there, and to watch Fox just pump the brakes at the same speed as Bongino and Patel about Epstein and all this. I mean, it's just like, I don't know, man. It's kind of a sad sight to watch Fox go into low gear. I mean, they're always not like they're great all the time anyways, but at least when there's an opposition presidency, they they get their jabs in. You get sort of that like Sky News sort of kitschy, like I don't know, it can be mildly entertaining and sometimes informative, sometimes here and there, but now it's just like I can't even hardly tune in. It's just like all their old buddies too. It's like they're bringing in all these people from the Trump administration to talk, and they're all their old colleagues. It's like it just doesn't feel like, you know, reporting journalism or news at all.
God. It's the nightmare of nightmares. I mean, Tammy Bruce, Pete Hegseth, there's about half a dozen others. Like that's the new Trump, to get his cabinet raided the Fox canteen cabinet, basically, to staff. It's embarrassing, actually. And you're right. The worst part about that, Hesher, is that, our former colleague, Pete Hegseth, used to be on Fox and Friends, and now he's the head of the Pentagon. I mean, what world are we living in here? I don't know. It just seems too weird. And it's not really good for the country. These aren't the best qualified people. They're not the smartest, certainly not the most experienced. So I have to say, what the hell are they doing there? It's just another reality. It seems like it's another reality TV show. You can't run the United States of America like that. There's going to be consequences. I think we're seeing some of the consequences, actually, of this. I mean, Yemen didn't go very well. Has Hegseth been fired for, is the worst defeat the United States has suffered militarily, I think, in my lifetime, I guess. I mean, Afghanistan doesn't count because that was a 25-year NATO, quagmire, if you will, a separate discussion. But this sort of hit and run with Yemen, it was a disaster. And Hegseth is in charge, right? But according to his Fox bros and all the supporters on the internet, Hesher, it's not his fault. It's not fault. So first he's in charge and he's wonderful. Then they get their ass kicked by the Houthis, and it's not Hegseth, had nothing to do with it. That's the thinking.
There's so much circular stuff going on. My head is spinning, it's like all the time. And it's, I don't know. It's going to be, I have a pretty dark feeling when it comes to, all of those negotiations that you're talking about. It's like some of the financial negotiations seem to be going well. Germany kind of caved this week a little bit, and that looks like that might actually, do some of the things that people that are have their eye on finances are interested in. So that was kind of an interesting one. So I mean, are we going to have Porsches and VWs made here in the United States now? And there's that secret number again, that almost 500 billion this time with Germany there. So maybe there's some semi good things going on. But when you look at Syria, you look at what's going on in the Middle East, Palestine, Ukraine, it's kind of looks like it's unraveling a little bit, and it's almost like it's unraveling to plan and on time. You know what I mean? It almost feels sort of like there's a symphony happening here, some sort of symphonic breakdown of all of the most unstable parts, of geopolitical policy. It could end up in sectarian or even international world war. So, we're all kind of on the edges of our seats here, just waiting to see what if anything, or, why this is going to pop off. Maybe it just won't. Maybe it's going to, go back to its normal level of slow boil destabilization. But it kind of sucks to feel like that would be the best thing that we can hope for,
Yeah. I mean, the slow boil destabilization, long-term, low-intensity conflicts, those ones that we've become so accustomed to covering. The part of it, the dismantling of the deep state or aspects of the deep state by Trump, has also created another problem. He's also dismantled his National Security Council and proper diplomatic teams, including translators on your side and so forth, like whole contingencies that would be deployed for, complex negotiations like the JCPOA. Okay. So Trump he's just got one guy. He's got one guy who is a billionaire from New York. And I tweeted this out, and, this is just my base conclusion. I go by results, not talk. And I put this out, and Steve Witkoff. If you haven't worked this out by now, folks, this is who he works for right here. Okay, he does not work for Donald Trump. He works for that guy and that country, that lobby, and he was. It's my understanding, Hesher, and it's probably not going to surprise you. He was selected. He was pre-selected for his role, not by Donald Trump, by somebody else. And the same one that selected Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz, and the list goes on. He was selected by the Israeli lobby. Okay. And the Israeli embassy, the whole Israeli conclave pre-approved this guy as the special envoy. So is it any surprise that they keep breaking down these negotiations with Hamas? Just they go and it reaches a crescendo, and then all of a sudden Israel goes, we can't accept it, and it breaks down. And then they go back again, more bombs, more airstrikes, more dead Palestinians, more babies blown to bits. And then another negotiation. Witkoff said, we got it this time, we've got it. And all of a sudden Israel says, no, we can't do it. And it breaks down. We're in the fourth cycle of this with Witkoff. I look at the results, Hesher, and I don't see any material difference. Not here, not in Ukraine, and certainly not with the Iranians. I'm happy they're talking with the Iranians, but this situation in Gaza has gone from bad to worse. It's really bad. And the situation in Ukraine isn't exactly going in the right direction right now. So I'm a little bit concerned with this guy and just the general way that things are being managed. Your thoughts on this overall?
Yeah. A lot of the talking seems to be sort of running out the clock. I keep seeing this. It's like, okay, we're talk, and with some sort of loose agreement, might last 48 hours. Maybe it'll last a week. Gosh, maybe we could get some water, some medicine. I don't know, some stuff like that. Not like there's a hospital to drop the medicine off at anymore, but some kind of aid. Then no, that breaks down to, and you look at like Ukraine, for example, the Minsk Accords completely ignored, signed after, long, painful talks and all that, promises made, and then ignored, to the toll of, many deaths. So this seems to just be like a tactic or some sort of hang up that the public just is supposed to get used to this, for years on end, or expect that this time it'll be different after all of the failed ones. So it seems like intentional, stretching out of the timeline to me while pieces are moved on the geopolitical grand chessboard.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. I think that's kind of like what Witkoff is doing. So what they're doing is trying to get more advanced weapons into the hands of the Ukrainians. And in Gaza, it's obvious what they're doing. They want to get I'll bring the map up on screen here. I think we've got the end game. So here it is. Yeah, basically kill zones, concentration camps, and eventually ethnic cleansing. But this whole aid debacle, distribution sites with these American mercenaries working with the Israelis, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which we've exposed thoroughly this past week on the Midweek Wire, plus on the UK column on Friday. And it's that's kind of like what they're buying for time for, to wreck the remaining buildings in Gaza and kill and displace as many of the native Palestinian population as possible. I know that sounds a little bit crazy and disgusting and horrible, but I again, Hesher, I go by results, and the talk is fine. Keep everyone's saying this, saying that, but I'm looking at the maps, I'm looking at the results, the death toll. It's not going in a good direction. So it's like at some point, but according to Fox, things are going amazing. This is the golden age of foreign policy. The Abraham Accords are bringing peace to the Middle East, and it's all going really well. Trump was with, the Arabs. There he is with MBS, looking on as Donald embraces his new buddy, his very strong past, very strong man, very handsome. There it is, the founder of Al-Qaeda in Syria. I never thought I'd see the day, but anyway, yeah, it's all going swimmingly well. So how long can they keep this propaganda facade up? Because at some point, the Ukrainians just attacked a Russian nuclear submarine facility this morning, nuclear deterrent and long-range bomber base. That's messing around with your nuclear deterrent. I don't like what probably is going to be coming next.
Well, remember in October last year, we were covering the Russian nuclear doctrine updates. They were very specific. They were very clear. They were very easy to read. And they discussed blocks and allies and things like that, and what a response would be if something maybe potentially like this were to happen, and intelligence were to lead to that attack being done in concert with a block of other countries. So if there were any NATO involvements there, NATO training, NATO tools, NATO ISR assets, whatever, that could it could be a big deal. This is the kind of thing that was talked about in that very clear document back in October of 24, if I recall. So, we had a couple of astute geopolitical hounds sniffing around this morning in our Discord, dropping links about that. That was what I woke up to. Spore cued me in. She said, "Hey, look at this." So that's a big red flag right there. That's a big part of what we're talking about right here with the geopolitical situation sort of potentially declining in all these locations.
No, absolutely. And so they're trying to negotiate this ceasefire or something or other. And just as they're making progress, as if by magic, Ukraine's hitting targets deep into Russian territory, into Siberia, into the Arctic region as well. They have to be getting assistance from NATO, I would imagine, at that distance. I just sort of think that's probably, the case. We'll bring one of those stories up on screen here so you guys can have a look. But I don't think this is totally solo on the part of Ukraine. There's one right there. Russian Arctic region under drone attack. Air defenses have been activated in the Murmansk region, according to their correspondent, the local government, actually. So UAVs coming from where? From Ukraine. That's a long distance over quite a few different countries. So, yeah. Do you think this is the art of the deal? Is this how their U.S. is trying to get leverage for negotiations? Is this how you deal with the Russians? You hit them hard, hoping that they're going to capitulate and you get a better deal for Zelensky? I don't think so.
No, I don't either. And as far as it was just 2-3 weeks ago, I was hearing Zelensky was now like softening on the talks and going to sign the mineral deal and talking about a ceasefire. This is not the action of someone who is actually thinking that. And someone asked me at the time, do you think that's real? And I said, no, there's no way that this Zelensky character, there's no way the green comedian is going to just change his mind on this. I mean, he's out of his mind, clearly, or at least we're being presented with someone that appears to be out of his mind. And, these actions, I agree. I don't think they could do it on their own. Maybe they can at this point, but it sure seems like the kind of thing that they would be doing in concert with other people and information.
I think so. Well, according to This is RT, so that's basically going to be the Russia official statement or position on it. They're calling these terrorist attacks, quote, the Kiev regime is ultimately responsible for the strikes. So there's other networks being deployed here. And, the CIA have very long-standing, deep networks in Dagestan, Chechnya, all of these former, quote, breakaway regions previously. And we saw the Crocus City Hall terrorist attack a year ago at the beginning of April, end of March, that sort of period there. And that was, I think, a cell that had been cycled through Ukraine, Uzbek terrorists and from Tajiks and so forth. So it's kind of like tangential to, Al-Qaeda type networks that they're being activated here. So this is military airfields in 5 Russian regions. So if this happened to the United States, Hesher, Matt, let's change the headline, Hesher. Let's say, should we say China, or let's just say, Russia, or, whatever, Cuba, attacks 5 U.S. airfields in 5 American regions of the continental United States. What would be the response from Washington, any administration? What do you think?
Well, I mean, it would rival something like, when COVID arrived or something like that. All channels would be pumping it 24/7. They would have the crazy music going for it. They would have all the backsplashes and tickers all tuned for it, and they would be running military propaganda. They would immediately start running war propaganda. So it's and the fact that this is sort of like, oh, this happened this morning. There's like a whisper in the media that like this is, now what's been done, with our partial $300 billion, contribution to it, which that in and of itself could factor into the Russian nuclear response policy that I was talking to. Like, they don't need to prove that, that Poland or Germany or UK or United States Special Forces went in there and flew a Predator drone over the site and, gave them the coordinates or whatever. They don't need to prove any of that. Like, we've already given them $300 billion, we've given them tanks. Have given them fighter jets yet? Is that still on the board? I don't know, but it doesn't even matter at this point. It's like we are a block with them, basically, as the way I read Putin's nuclear document. We're part of the block that they're talking about. Me, you, UK, Poland, Germany, all of us NATO countries.
Yeah, our leaders are painting a big fat target on all of us, basically. Yeah, and they've got underground bunkers and private islands and whatnot. So look at this. Collapse of 2 bridges in Russia. Acts of sabotage, according to the Russian government. So we're looking at a major offensive here against Russia in the last 24 hours. And they took down this bridge with people on, okay, with a passenger train. And I think many people have died so far, killing 7, 71 injured. So we're about to go, Hesher, from a special military operation to a declaration of war for Moscow. And is this not what they want? It seems like this is what the maniacs, the crazies in Brussels want. Definitely Frederick Merz wants war. The Germans they didn't get enough in World War II of the Russians. They want more. And the United States, yeah, they bring it on. I mean, when does America not like a good war? And they've spun one up here. This is not good. I don't like what's coming next. I'm really not liking it at all.
Have any Western leaders addressed this and condemned Ukraine for doing this?
That's a good question. What would be the sensible thing to do?
That would be the smart thing to do if you cared about your people, considering, if you cared about your people and you have good national security and advisors who actually have read the nuclear doctrine from the opposing nuclear superpower, which, we would assume is happening, right? I mean, all $1 trillion DoD budget, an endless black bag budget for all the intelligence agencies. We could assume that somebody's read these documents, right? And that they would know that this has put a target on our backs, and that this could get ugly, and would insist that Western world leaders say, hey, we weren't part of this. We condemn this. We're not going to support Ukraine anymore. But I haven't even heard a whisper. I'm barely seeing anything in Western media. Nothing like that, certainly. Just, almost like the ones I have seen of it are almost cheering it on. It's like the tone in their voice raises and all that good stuff. Like they're reporting good news or something, not like they're reporting news that puts a target on everybody's back.
Yeah. I mean, in the old days, well, even during the Cold War, there'd be a call from the U.S. president, we're sorry about the loss, really sorry. Unless, of course, the U.S. is involved in it, then they won't make that call. So that worries me. It does really concern me that, the kids are in charge and there's no adults left in the room. And I'm no more confident about Trump's gang than I am with Sebastian Gorka and some of these psychopaths running around the White House than I was with the Biden gang, quite frankly. I don't see this group as that much better, given the chance. There's still some crazy neocons in there, as well as between the Zionists, the neocons, and so forth. So, other news. Let's just go down here of what's been up at 21st Century Wire. Federal judge says law used to detain Mahmoud Khalil is likely unconstitutional. I think he's probably going to win that case. That's going to be a huge egg on the face of Marco Rubio and probably Trump too, although Trump will hopefully be able to avoid that somehow. And let me get down to the interesting one here. Okay. I don't know if you've got a chance to read this, but this is a devastating takedown of Doge by someone on the right, actually, Martin Da Silva. He's saying Musk fleeing the Trump administration. So a couple of things happened this week, Hesher, if you noticed, okay? Musk announces he's leaving the government. He's leaving Doge. He said, oh, it's only a temporary position, whatever. And the numbers in here are devastating. So he said he was going to cut $2 trillion back when this all started. Then he downgraded that to $1 trillion. Then he downgraded it to $150 billion. It's a big downgrade from $2 trillion. And now we find out that Doge is probably going to end up costing the federal government more than it saved through rehiring all the people that Elon and his band of data analysts, adolescent data analysts, and big balls.
Find folks like big balls.
Yeah, like big balls. It's going to cost them quite a lot. They absolutely lied about some of the savings. On one report, it says here they put $8 billion instead of $8 million. It was a contract. They just changed it from $1 million to $1 billion. And, so they're fudging their numbers and crazy. And tax, obviously, collections way down because of the cuts in the IRS. So not everyone's going to protest about that for good reason, as you can imagine. But still, the government's taking in less money. And then he's ramping up the defense budget. So Doge saved no money from the last year of Biden. And by the end of the year, the overruns are expected to be much higher than Biden's last year in office. So that's Doge. It's going to end up costing the taxpayer. There he is with crypto scammer Javier Milei, with the chainsaw. So what was all this, Hesher? And then there's the white genocide debacle. Don't even want to get into that. So all that happened in the last week. I mean, and here's Elon basically lamenting that, that Trump shouldn't have, he's done the wrong thing. And he's basically saying Doge made no difference. He's disappointed in Trump's big, beautiful bill. What did you think was going to happen? I mean, we've been watching the federal government for a long time, Hesher. What country has Elon been? Has he not been paying attention to how the U.S. government operates?
I don't know. I mean, they raised what are we like 4 or 5 months into this? They raised the DoD budget up to $1 trillion. It was up at 800 and some odd billion. That got raised to $1 trillion. So that just was sort of a shell game for whatever amount of that money was. I mean, that amount of money that they raised that by might even be more than Doge actually saved. And I'm afraid they're probably not going to actually rehire a lot of those people. I think they're going to just use AI agents probably to do as many of those jobs as they can and then figure out how they can get rid of even more of them. So there's a good chance that a big part of this was a big slash and burn of positions that they wanted to get rid of so that they could replace with AI. And I think that's probably, unfortunately, same for the IRS, because we're seeing reports about AI being employed at the IRS. So we thought the 70,000 new armed IRS agents was scary. Well, how about Skynet IRS? How's that sound?
Wow. So Elon, the big conservative, he's a real conservative. He's a technocrat.
And what does he sell? He's got AI to sell. How about that? How fortunate.
Yeah, him and Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, the tech bros. Trump has let them in. Isn't the first time Trump has let in some crazy technocrats to basically run roughshod over all of our civil liberties? I mean, what was that thing called in his first term? Wasn't that Operation Warp Speed? Yeah. And Fauci? I remember that, but the Republicans seem to have forgotten it.
Still never got an apology for that either. We were all, apparently we're supposed to just let that slip into the memory hole, but according to even government figures now, it's up to maybe 500,000 people that may have lost their lives to some of these products and some of the things that came of that very initiative. A huge, massive number nobody wants to talk about. The CDC this week recommended to people that they cancel their travel plans unless they have a certain shot.
Really?
They want you to have the MMR, and if not, you should cancel your travel plans because it's so bad. So this grift is still going on in the background. RFK was here in Texas shilling on that very same product, not but 6-8 weeks ago or something like that, on top of some fake news, on top of a couple of dead young girls. So that whole thing has been bothersome to me. I'm seeing the sort of pandemic industrial complex rearing its ugly head with some fear prawn this week in some of the headlines.
Yeah, and they also announced a new variant. COVID variant has been launched. I don't know if you caught that. The B1.11, whatever the hell it is. I mean, it's just stupid. Apparently, it's coming out of China. They've somehow figured out that it's from China. I mean, just totally retarded.
Sounds like a Star Wars droid.
Yeah. Let me see if I can bring that variant up on screen here. I don't know. I've got to. Oh, I'll find it in a moment. But let's round off Elon. So, like, if you haven't seen this report, you guys, if you have any questions about Doge and what they actually did or didn't do, it's all here. Like all the numbers, everything, the whole analysis. It's pretty bad. Like, Doge was basically a big scam. It was all for Elon's personal brand and to help Trump seem like he was being more efficient and, cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. Nothing of the sort. Nothing like that happened. And he's got us chasing a white genocide in South Africa that's not happening. That's all Elon, by the way. That was the whole white genocide thing with Trump and bringing the South African president over. That was all Elon, basically. He was the main organ, and apparently it didn't go well. So isn't it funny that he's being kind of politely kicked out of government? But there's other stories that emerged, Hesher, this week about Elon. There's a whole bunch of other things. One of them is this one, and not that this should surprise anybody. It certainly doesn't surprise me. But the New York Times ran this story that Elon basically was whacked out of his head on drugs during the campaign. Now he's admitted he takes ketamine and what else? He's probably on like Adderall. I don't know what he's admitted, but ketamine, I remember hearing him say that he took ketamine for therapeutic purposes or something like that. I mean, that's a pretty powerful horse tranquilizer. And ketamine, it's for horses, so put horses down. It's powerful stuff and hallucinogens. He's smoked pot on the Rogan show. That was fairly lightweight, but he does all this other stuff. And his behavior you remember the inauguration rally where he was jumping up and down and saying he's going to plant flags on Mars and how cool that would be. And it was very cringeworthy. And all of this carry on in the White House. And like, how much of this was like under the influence? That's the question. Now, of course, he's denying any of it, but it's sort of concerning, Hesher, because he's parading around his 5-year-old son. Is he on drugs while he's in the White House? And then something else happened this week, Hesher. Elon showed up. Look at him. He's got a black eye there. He's got a black eye. You see that? Now, he was asked by the press, how come you got a black eye, this clown, Elon Musk, and he blames it on his 5-year-old son. He said, I asked X to punch me, and turns out when a 5-year-old punches you, you get a black. That's impossible. Have you seen how small his kid is?
Yeah.
If his kid could pick up a frying pan and really give it a good swing, maybe get a black eye, but not his hand. His hand is like, a spoonful of pasta. There's no way he got a black eye. Is it possible, Hesher, that Musk, his baby mama smacked him and he's blaming it, he's using his kid, because he's used his kid as a human shield already for media purposes. He always leads with his 5-year-old ex for the photo ops to make him look like a family man. He's clearly not a family man, obviously. So he does use the kid, and he is pretty ruthless about, to make his PR better, he uses his kid. Like, he's already shown he's pretty shameless. The jovial Elon Musk there joking around. So funny. Yeah, his kid gave him a black eye. Do you believe that? Does anybody believe that? Not getting any challenge from the Fox News crowd. I think they got a little, I don't know if this is a good shot of the black eye there. But, I mean, I think one of the baby mamas punched him.
Who else
Maybe
would have
Grimes.
who else? Yeah, I was going to say, who else would have access? I mean, he says he's had multiple assassination attempts on him. He's got security around him at all times, I'm guessing. We just had a CEO get rolled, I think was it in Dallas? I'm not exactly sure where it happened, but there was a story about a CEO that got like a Bitcoin's, rich guy that got ambushed, and there's, I don't really know all the details, but it sounded like there were 2 off-duty detectives involved in it in some way, shape, or form. It was very interesting. But anyway, we know that people like him, high-profile people like him, have security around them pretty much most of the time. So I don't know who else would have access to sock him in the face, give him a black eye, unless it was like his MK Ultra handler or something like that. It seems like Grimes is a pretty good guess, but she's only one of like 14 baby mamas at this point. So we don't even know who all of them are. And what's the right-wing influencer gal that's the latest baby mama? She's
Ashley Sinclair.
Ashley. She's had some drama lately. I mean, I don't know if it doesn't seem like it would behoove any of them to punch him though, because he's sort of their cash cow. But he wouldn't want that to press to get out, I'm sure. So it's not like he would have him arrested or anything.
I could see him getting decked by a woman because he has this insufferable overgrown man-child quality to him, and he obviously is not loyal to anybody. He wouldn't have that many baby mamas and that many illegitimate children if you were loyal. So I mean, that's probably, I can see, if I had to bet, it's one of his baby mamas. It's definitely not his 5-year-old kid.
It's a solid bet.
That's so weak that you would pawn that off. So if he's using the kid, it's probably the mother of that kid.
Yeah.
And that's Grimes. And that's Grimes.
There is one other option. Perhaps he was on an airplane with Mr. Brigitte Macron.
Oh yeah, yeah, that one. Yeah, could have been. There's a lot of that going on these days, right? Yeah.
Did you see that? Oh my gosh, man. That was in the wake of the whole, 5 hours of Candace Owens journalism on that and what that's done to Macron and Brigitte in particular. That was just, I mean, too well timed, too epic. The whole just like, Heisman to the face and then the camera right there, just, and the precious. That was absolutely stunning piece of media. 2 seconds of media right there.
Yeah, headline: Macron is assaulted by male assailant on airplane. I mean, that's how it should read anyway. Yeah, I mean his wife or husband, wife, whatever, really has the best plastic surgeon in the world. I think. I mean, that's the top of the top.
Something to aspire for, yeah, for sure.
That's the best of the best. I mean, nobody is even close. The waiting list is probably years to get that one. But the world of the nip and the tuck, the lifestyles of the rich and famous, as Robin Leach used to say, the great Australian TV presenter. You remember Robin Leach? Yeah.
Yeah, back when the rich and famous didn't look like the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah. So, it's been a busy week. So Elon said his famous last words were, "This isn't the end of Doge, it's just the beginning." Those are like famous last words. I've heard that so many times before something totally collapses. It's not the end, it's just the beginning. And then all of a sudden, I think that's the end of Doge, basically. And I think that's the end of Elon in government. And yeah, I think it crashed and burns. Trump's got to make it look good. He's got to keep things okay. I mean, it's not a good look. A lot of problems were caused, a lot of feathers were ruffled, and it sounds like, just looking at the data that Elon was putting out, how a lot of it was falsified, and these big rounding errors like 8 million to 8 billion. I mean, these aren't the mistakes that genius wonder kids make. This is very careless and unprofessional. And then the whole point is the budget wasn't reduced at all. In fact, it's expanded. So what was the point? Good.
I got a great story for you. I have a friend who was working on a government contract as a IT guy, right? And he was no fan of Biden, to put it lightly. And when Trump was elected, he was very excited. And then he got doged. He lost his job in the Doge. And it was like a sad irony, He was like, well, I'm glad, Donald Trump's the president and not Kamala Harris, but this sucks to get doged. Well,
he just got doged.
Yeah. Right after Trump came in. Yeah, it was like, here's your parting gift for your vote. You get fired.
So that's a verb. That's a verb, sort of like a verb, I guess. Yeah,
I guess so. I haven't really heard anybody use it, but I think I might have just coined it.
You did.
At any rate, and it was right after these big wins, right? Like he works on an installation where, he had experienced, 4 years of all the crazy CRT and DEI, and they added all the extra training and to sit through all these training modules and, culture. They changed the culture on the base pretty much. And then right before he lost his gig, they put an email out to the entire base saying, no more DEI, no more CRT. These positions are gone, and this is not allowed here anymore. So he went a few months without work, and then he got a contract back over there to go into the system and and fix the gender field so that it only says male and female. They had to go take out all of the, 23 other check boxes, cat, non-binary, whatever, all that stuff. So it's just been such a wild, like weird turn of events for so many people. This is not the outcome a lot of people expected.
Wow. Wow. So you got a database, clean up the database
That's right.
contract there. Well, he's in gainful employment there. So and again, there was this. What I read was that Elon was on this kind of ideological kind of mission, or he was trying to had this kind of methodology that was sort of ideological based, and he was supposedly he targeted one somebody who was receiving some federal funding or grant that was doing prison advocacy, and because I forgot the name of the actual group, it's in the article that we showed up on the screen, but he went after them and basically wanted minders to be at all these organizations to watch them and to see what they're doing, if they're being woke or not, or something like this. I mean, it just got to kind of an extreme level, and one of them hadn't even received any funding this year, but they'd received it the previous year, didn't get this is before Doge arrived, and then his team wrote that up as one of their accomplishments, that they cut funding, but they never got funding to begin with, but they counted them as a cut. All sorts of stuff like this. I mean, it very unprofessional, very kind of slapdash, ad hoc, as you'd expect. Big promises and not delivering that much. Definitely not to say when you start off with $2 trillion and you put that out to America, most of the Fox crowd believe that he cut $2 trillion. If you polled them right now, how much do you think? Multiple choice question, they'd all pick $2 trillion. Maybe the other half would pick $1 trillion. Nobody would say minus 50 billion, that he added money to the budget. No one would say that. So the propaganda worked, and his reputation among the base is that he was this revolutionary, efficiency, and it was all front loaded. Remember at the rally, and Trump comes out and Doge, he's going to be doing Doge, and it was all everyone's Doge, the merchandise, the dogs, the T-shirts, the hats, the Doge father, all this stuff. Nothing. It was just all pie in the sky. Nothing. No material benefit, except for what you said, Hesher. Preparing the groundwork for the technocracy.
And so much fanfare. I mean, the fanfare, the dog and pony show aspect was just insane. And I would also be curious to know the financials behind the flip-flop of Tesla itself as sort of a greeny, liberal progressive product to Spore and I literally have a friend who bought a Tesla, and he said, he said this to us, he goes, why did I buy a Tesla? Because F liberals. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, so what are liberals buying now? Well, I know a liberal that just went and bought a Hyundai electric car. So it's like, well, who brought the new Hyundai factory and investments into the country? Oh, Donald Trump did. Do you think $500 billion again? So Donald Trump brings allegedly a $500 billion Hyundai deal into the country. What that is, I believe, is factories and no tariffs and all this kind of stuff. Well, who's invested in those? That's the other thing. We've noticed that Donald Trump has been caught on hot mics talking about how much money him and some of his partners have made on some of these policy changes, tariff wars and all this stuff. So, he should be careful with that, because he's been threatened with so much, attacked with so much lawfare. It's kind of like you're giving open goals to your political opponents to come after you, to cause more of this sort of, hyper partisan polarization. And it certainly is having that effect. Those that don't like Orange Man are getting a lot of ammunition right now. But kind of just feels like there was a reshuffle of the whole electric car thing, it just feels very calculated, and like everybody stands to make money on it. And the people that are buying electric cars from different brands based on their identity politic are really not having any effect politically whatsoever, and probably just enriching all of these lithium ion battery pushers.
Yeah. Yeah, a little different, spreading out the market a little bit. And you know, so Elon's he's done what, you know, he Tesla propelled him into the stratosphere. It's given him the capital, all the leverage to do everything that he's doing. But, you know, people forget Elon Musk backed Joe Biden in 2020. He backed that senile corpse in 2020, and the election fraud and all the other electioneering and so forth, ballot harvesting, all that garbage. And Elon backed Hillary Clinton in 2016. Yeah. Elon, you backed Hillary. You backed Obama twice, 2008, 2012. And I think you backed John Kerry in 2004. Don't blame you for that. I don't know if Elon voted or not in 2000, but if he did, he probably voted for Al Gore. Just saying.
Yeah, very likely.
I'm just saying, because it's all about the Green New Deal. That was Elon's New Deal.
That was all the rage and in that election.
All that, like the electric car was going to save the climate. Total, absolute fraud. But that's how he became the richest man in the world, was on the back of the fraud of the climate change hoax, of the Green New Deal, technocratic potential global takeover, which is still in play. That's how he became the richest man in the world, on the back of one of the biggest frauds, hoaxes, and power grabs and technocratic World Economic Forum buttressed agendas. That is Elon Musk. He's Klaus Schwab's greatest achievement. And he just suddenly pivoted, you know, 8 months ago on the MAGA train. And then the rest is history, folks. So, like, I'm just saying, you know, he's the cult. I've been trashed on X, you know, my account's frozen. My followers are going, you know, like they're removing followers at a rate of, I don't know, hundreds per day from my account. Probably because of my criticisms of Musk and Trump and everything like that. Who knows? But he's got an army of trolls. They're all anonymous sock puppet accounts, I noticed. So, you know, with like 20 followers, 100 followers. The biggest one had like 600. And people are saying, why don't you lay off him? He was a homeless immigrant when he came to America.
Lay off.
Elon's a
Leave
homeless
Elon
immigrant.
alone.
He's just a homeless immigrant, they said, and now he's
the richest man on the planet. What are you talking about?
He's Horatio Alger on steroids. Somehow, you know, like that. You know, it's like his dad didn't have a diamond and emerald mine or whatever. He probably had a handful of stones, and that's how you transferred cash out of the post-apartheid South Africa. Or wire it money laundering organizations via Israel. That's another way you get capital out of South Africa into your Silicon Valley startup venture. So, but yeah, rags to riches. Leave him alone. He needs a safe space. Don't pick. No, the other one I got, Hesher, was, why are you so cruel? He has autism. I got that one too.
Oh yeah, that's a favorite people love to wing out these days. Like people. It's so insulting too, as though like people with autism can't be held responsible for their actions or their words. Are you kidding me? There are so many people that are on some sort of spectrum, and autism spectrum, and you know, that doesn't mean that they're not, you know, to be held accountable for their words and their actions. And it doesn't mean that if you criticize them that you're just doing ad hominem for the heck of it, or trying to, you know, belittle them in a mean sort of way. Like we're talking about things that affect all of us here.
Yeah, because he comes out and basically attacks liberals, Democrats, blacks, South Africans, whatever. See, he's going after everybody, and but you're not allowed to criticize him according to his base. So he's allowed to do full frontal assaults on everybody on a platform he owns with, and he makes you follow him. Even if you unfollow him, you still have to follow him.
If you unfollow him, you just see him more.
It goes to the top of your feed, and you can't criticize him. So it's like, you remember that? If you complained about Facebook censorship, it's a private company. Mark Zuckerberg can do whatever he wants. And the right were all livid over that cop out. And now they're doing the same thing. Well, if you don't like it, it's Elon's platform. It's a private platform. Same argument.
The amount of convergence on those sort of like whiny liberal talking points is staggering, you know, in the MAGA base, you know, the true believers, the trust the planners. It's just like all the conspiracies have converged, and all the blue anon is you know, turning purple and on now. It's really nutty.
I don't know, these guys. I mean, if they could only hear themselves, you know. And one guy said, I've been called a Democrat, a dumb Democrat, whatever. And I'm looking at some of these accounts, like they just got on the platform in 2022, 2023. So I sent him an article from 2016 before the election, calling out the DNC hack as fake, and that Trump was being, you know, wrongly persecuted for Russiagate. So I was, you know, I was supporting Trump in that sense before all these people were even on the app, you know. But they're attacking you, they just assume that you're, you know, a pink-haired, you know, progressive, just because you're criticizing Elon or Trump. And it's I don't know. That's kind of where we're at, I think, with U.S. politics. It's getting pretty polarized in that respect.
Yeah, I'm afraid the attention span is really low for a lot of people, and even people that thought they were, you know, highly politically tuned in the lead up to this administration. It's like there's a lot of Timothy Leary tune in, drop out going on right now. I don't know if the LSD is involved, but these days the MK Ultra lives in the LED screens, not in the LSD so much.
So a lot going on with Elon. It's it looks like he's out of the picture for a while. He's probably got some other kids to deal with, and baby mamas, and NDAs to sign for his dates.
Yeah, he's got video games to play too. You know, he has to maintain that top slot on World of Warcraft or whatever. So there's that. Oh, we would be remiss if we did not shout out Whitebird, who in the Boiler Room Discord said, we're talking about Elon's black eye, said he joined the Harry Reid Black Eye Club. Harry used to show up for press conferences all the time with a shiner, and there is a whole thing out there. You can go get this debunked for you at PolitiFact or any casual crappy fact checker. But the question is, are black eyes on newsmakers evidence they're in the Illuminati? And PolitiFact says no, sometimes they're just clumsy.
We're going to do a quick fire comment round, Hesher, because we're just getting slammed with comments here. I totally forgot to bring in this part of the segment before we convene this week's edition of Sunday Wire here. Jokers for you: Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Wozniak, Larry Ellison were all chosen as teenagers at the very same Xerox Corp think tank in the Bay Area. Interesting. We might have to follow up on that.
I've heard that before. Yeah, think like World Economic Forum Young Leaders, like an older version of it. I've heard this. There's might be a there.
Yep. Deep State handpicks these people who they think are safe and easily controllable to become poster boys for global capital. Yeah, I could see that possibly. Definitely. Elon does kind of fit that profile. Certainly, I would say so.
Yeah, and if they step out of the line, they get donkey punched at a Diddy party right in the eye.
And Jokers for You is on a roll here. Bezos and Musk are both psyops and assets from the beginnings of their career. They are vetted as teenagers, no joke. So he's going deep on this one,
You
Hesher.
could throw Zuckerberg in there too. We could make a list that would go on and on this afternoon.
Here we go. And just to change gears, the Scotian doomer, Oreshnik incoming.
You are a doomer. I know, though, right? Yep, I know.
Yep. So we'll see what else we've got going on here. Who else have we got? Oh, we're here. Take a chance with this 2-pound tomato. Another neat thing to look into is the ethnicity of the legal advocates who helped Nelson and his necklacing advocate wife, Winnie. Oh, this is South Africa. Okay, so going after the ANC. So yes, I think that's a tired talking point that was retired long ago, that Nelson Mandela is a terrorist. So I guess I don't think so. I mean, so are the IRA and so are every other armed liberation movement in history. They were terrorists until they weren't. Look at Jolani. He's probably the prime example, isn't he? The most extreme example of that one. So here we go. Oh, there's so much profanity. I can't put a lot of these up on
spicy in there.
Yeah, I can't do it. Hold on for a minute. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, there's just a lot of chaos in the comment sections this week. We're talking about, nuclear Armageddon. There's a lot of talk, a lot of dooming going on in the comments. Here we go. This is what we're looking for. I'm non-binary. It took years for me to come to terms and embrace my shit. And it's gone in a blip. Thanks, dumbass white people. I love this comment because it's so unfiltered and raw and authentic. So social emotional learning with Dr. Donnie. Thank you, Dr. Donnie. Thank you for sharing that with us and opening up in such an honest way. I really appreciate this, Hesher.
That's good.
This is great. So we're sorry about all of the removals of fields on databases about genders and whatnot. I know this is going to be tough, but you may, just for the moment anyway, until there's a Democrat back in power, you might have to pick male or female. Looks like you're probably a male. I'm just guessing. I could be wrong. And again, don't be offended if I got that wrong. But if there's only two choices and you had to pick male or female, looks like you're a guy, so you might just, for now anyway, for the remainder of the Trump term, opt into that male tick box. And who knows, if Gavin Newsom's in or Kamala gets in 2028, you get a run of the spectrum again. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, the pendulum will swing.
You'll swing all over the place. It's swinging around the room. It's all about swinging. Oh my gosh, there's some Kamala feedback going on here. Here we go. ZP's app's always good for intelligent comments. Our biggest problem is the downfall of our judicial branch. Under Trump, quote, reform to fascism. Oof, not very complimentary of Donald Trump's interference. It's kind of ironic, Hesher, because Trump was the victim of lawfare, total politicization of the judicial branch, total politicization to an extreme degree that is just one of the most dangerous and damning things I've ever seen in my life in politics. But the response of Trump, they're basically going to do their own version of this by literally attacking. Well, I don't think they're doing it very wisely, because it's going to create a really heavy backlash if they go out of power in 3 years or 4 years. And it could be even more authoritarian. We've got this polarizing war going on in politics. And the casualties of this war are going to be our system of checks and balances. That's the danger. What do you think?
Yeah. No, it's a huge problem. I agree with ZP's app here. And it seems to be an ongoing function. It seems to just get worse with every administration, almost like policymakers are trying to do this on purpose. It's almost like the red tape and all this stuff is maybe, you know, I should just attribute it to negligence and stupidity and building corruption, but it almost feels like it's being done on purpose. And we have policymakers and party members in both parties who have made ridiculous suggestions, you know, that would make it even worse, like packing the courts and the whole thing that has been done with the circuit courts, the way the circuit courts have been populated with partisan people who, many of whom don't even have experience as judges, that can literally stop policy or you know, be the log jam in getting someone their constitutional right to a speedy trial. You know, this kind of stuff. It's just it's broken. You know, I've talked to a lot of lawyers about this. I've interviewed a lot on today's news talk, The Pulse, and here at Alternate Current Radio also. And these are the kind of things that could be fixed. And you know, if an administration was serious about getting this back to where it's a functional, because it's one of the pillars of our government. It's one of the checks and balances, and the other two are clearly corrupt and clearly screwed up. And this is the one that should be disallowing them from running roughshod on people. And this is the one that didn't do that. That system did not do that during 2020 to 2022 and a half at all. And they allowed so much crazy lawfare to happen, politicized lawfare to happen. And, you know, we were told that this administration was going to stop that and disallow it from continuing to happen in future administrations. And I certainly hope that the MAGA crowd holds them to that, because it's a pretty big promise and it's a pretty big problem.
Yeah, like Caroline Levitt, the spokesmodel, the whatever press secretary, I'm not sure. I call her a spokesmodel because that's kind of like what Trump likes to have in those positions. Remember, I think Newert was the other sort of young Cameron Diaz doppelganger in the last term. But she basically saying, you know, these judges, you know, America didn't vote for these judges, and they're getting in the way of Trump's policy. You hear this talking point. Fox loves this one. That's not how the judges ruled. They ruled on due process. And due process is a constitutional issue. So the judiciary should not be political, not right or left. They should just be constitutional. And as far as I could see, those judges were ruling on due process. And that's in everyone's interest. That's in everyone's interest, including the right, including Trump himself, because he was a victim of no due process through the politicized courts. So I don't like the way that just because something goes against let's face it, the ham-fisted immigration showboating by Rubio and these guys, it is cutting into, you know, constitutional due process, and some of that stuff's being pushed back, as we showed with Mahmoud Khalil and others, and it's against the First Amendment in the case of those foreign student protesters and so forth. Rubio's taking it. He's now wanting to ban Chinese international students. So they're going in a certain direction on this. I don't like it, and I hope it doesn't continue in this direction, but somehow I think it will. The Dark Commission's got one here. The difference, you'll like this, Hesher, being a science fiction fan. The Dark Commission at Pandora Chaser 2. The difference between Musk and me, he says, is that he's read the same sci-fi books I have, but he's got the money. I think he's definitely Dunning-Kruger, just hires the experts. A lot of people have said the same, that he's a front man. Possible.
Yeah, people have a hard time believing that this guy has untold government contracts, works in, you know, space engineering, rocket launching, the most innovative electric car company in the United States, has time for side projects like boring giant holes into the earth and making tunnels in bedrock. You know, it's just a little side hustle. And on top of that, has the amount of time to be a top tier video gamer. I don't know if you folks know any top tier video gamers, and maybe you do. Maybe you have some idea of how much time they spend sitting on their butt in front of a screen to maintain said position. Of course, there are rumors that Elon pays people to play on his account, so that
he would never do that.
could be a thing. I don't know.
Elon would never pay someone to do his work for him. Oh, are you kidding
Hire
me?
the experts. Hire the experts. And Elon, if we're correct, Patrick, we were talking about, did he vote for Al Gore back in 2000? I don't know, but I bet he probably did. But one thing that he did do properly was he watched what Al Gore did instead of what Al Gore said, because Al Gore said all these areas were going to be underwater in 10 years, yet he bought mansions in all of those locations. So Elon cued into that and he said, oh, look at all this money that's being made on this hysteria. Maybe I should look into these batteries a little bit more. Where in Africa can I get lithium and other, cobalt and other stuff? And then we all know how that story goes from there.
Where can we get Congolese children working at 5 cents a day to go down in the pit for cobalt and whatever? And to fuel the electric car revolution. Yeah, wonderful. I love this. It's almost good enough to go out on here. Elon, he wears his kid as part of his costume in place of the hat at times. So true. So true. I mean, it's just old already. The whole shtick with the kid on the shoulders, it's too much, basically. Thank you for that, Mr. ZP Zap here. They're all piling in on Elon here. Elon is far too busy cage fighting 5-year-olds.
And losing, apparently.
Or cage fighting baby mamas. It's debatable.
Wasn't it just a year or two ago he was telling us he was going to fight Zuckerberg, and now he's getting beat up by his 5-year-old?
Holy, you're right. Did he challenged Zuckerberg to a fight, right?
Yeah.
And then Zuckerberg went and trained for it, and Elon didn't. Elon was eating burgers, and then he canceled it. That was a little bit of a chicken out, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
That wasn't going to happen. Zuckerberg would have kicked his ass.
I think so.
Zuckerberg looked like he was in fighting shape. I'm not a fan of Mark Zuckerberg, trust me on that. But he looked like he was fit. He probably hired the best MMA trainer, got in fighting shape, and would probably whoop Elon pretty bad. I mean, if his baby mom is giving him shiner, certainly Zuckerberg would have worked him.
Yeah, he lives in Hawaii. I think there's some pretty good jiu-jitsu houses in Hawaii, and I've seen pictures of him in some of them. I don't know if he still does that, but he definitely he might have taken that seriously for a minute there until he saw Elon.
Look at this. Kirk Lazarus weighing in here. Elon's granddaddy was a eugenicist technocrat. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. True. He's the founder of the technocracy movement. His granddad, Elon Musk's grandfather, the technocracy movement. They were banned in Canada. They kicked him out and they had to go to apartheid South Africa. That's how bad things were for that party. That's true. And the apple doesn't normally fall far from the tree. Oh, here we go. Last but not least, and this is you from Texas should be able to verify whether this is true or false. Texas residents near the Musk data center may lose their land to eminent domain for its expansion. Wow. Is that the case? Could that happen?
The way Greg Abbott behaves in this state, I would not be surprised at all. I just got a big data download a couple of weeks back on his involvement in the creation of this whole. We've got all kind of issues with housing developments that have been created, and we're the typical American thing. Something I used to see in California a lot. Oh, we're going to develop this land right here, and it's going to be what we like to call low and middle income housing track. It's going to we pass it through, we get all these extra waivers and stuff. Well, Greg Abbott highly involved with the company that set that up, and Greg Abbott was the one that petitioned the government for them to get in on I can't remember, the opportunity zone, get it labeled as an opportunity zone, which means they don't have to pay capital gain taxes, means if they set up businesses there, those businesses don't have to pay capital gains taxes. and then they moved a whole bunch. They had one community further up north in Texas that they were saying was going to be all the advertising for it was like it's an Islamic neighborhood. It's and of course people hit the roof when that happened. And then there's this other one closer to Houston. It's like 700,000 acres of land or something like that, and it's just this huge crime zone. And Greg Abbott goes around and talks about how terrible it is. How did this happen? Well, he's the one that worked with the land developers who are millionaires that dine in his mansion multiple times, that do investments. They all do investments together, and they it's just so corrupt and stupid that I would not be surprised if that was the case. There's a lot of selling out going on here in the background.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, in my opinion, Gore was given the green gold mine for not contesting Florida. You're probably correct there. They made him
interesting.
They made him the Green King, as that was his payoff. So he became a hero, got a Nobel Peace Prize, got an Oscar or some kind of award or whatever. But we're going to end it with this, Hesher, and thank you for your comments and your analysis on all of these topics. We really appreciate it, but we have to end on this comment because as we were talking about the source of Elon's black eye, Kirk Lazarus said Amber Heard headbutted Elon. It's probably true. He probably made a pass at Amber Heard. I'm sure. Who knows? Maybe she signed an NDA.
He's like, I watched you in court. You're pretty freaky. You want to hang out?
Yeah. Do you want my seed? Kind of thing. That's what he does at parties. Apparently, goes and offers to father.
Got plenty of beds you could drop a grumpy on in my mansion.
Would not be surprised, but yeah, that would be funny. That would be a great scene, actually. Maybe someone could do an AI. Let's not get into AI videos. Anything is possible now. That's kind of freaking me out.
Are you seeing these new ones, man? We were talking about them on Boiler Room last week. My goodness, the new Google engine for text to video is
I saw it.
Absurd. It's absurd. Like we are at that. We're approaching that moment now that what was it? Former CIA director William Casey or Deputy Director William Casey said, where we'll know our disinformation campaign is complete when none of the people know what is real anymore. I mean, is that what he meant? Are we there? Is this some sort of inflection point we're about to pop through here? What kind of problems are going to come from this?
Hesher, take us out with your programs this week. Where can people find you, listen, and watch?
All right. Boiler Room will be live on Thursday at alternatecurrentradio.com, streaming live on Rumble, X, and YouTube currently. Audio archive up at Spreaker, but you can find your entryway into all those things at our website, alternatecurrentradio.com. If you want to support us, we got support links, donation links. We have a store, we got merch, we got all that good stuff. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Comment. Great to see everybody in the chats today. Thanks for hanging out with us. It was hard to even keep up with it today, but I saw a bunch of great comments. I'm glad we got to go through some of them. Same to our friends in the 21 Wire chat and in the Boiler Room Discord and over on the Rumble chat. Lovely to see everybody. Hope you have a great rest of the weekend. We'll see you at alternatecurrentradio.com in the Boiler Room Thursday night around 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yes, indeed. And we still live on the Pulse, Hesher?
They're reformatting some of the tech over there, some of the broadcast tech, and I'm looking forward to getting back on it. But for now, last I looked, Pulse Radio 2, where I was broadcasting, is being worked on. So they got the hood open and they're working on it over there. And as soon as my slot opens back up, I'll be back with the Pulse. But Mike Ryan is broadcasting over there. Shout out to Mike. At night, good to see, at least for me, it's at nighttime. Stay up late enough, I can catch the Mike Ryan show over at ThePulse.Today. So we encourage you to do the same thing to keep up with what's going on over there.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Hesher, and a big thank you to our special guest for Karim Franceschi from Italy, coming in live with unbelievable and great analysis. And again, you want to follow Karim on X. There's his profile at Karim Franceschi. There, he is a formidable Middle East analysis from his particular perspective. Very, very informative, very enlightening. Really appreciate him joining us. That's all we've got time for, folks. And again, thank you to everybody in the comment sections for participating and weighing in. Appreciate your feedback. And of course, as always, if you like the type of content we're putting out, you like these shows, this analysis, these guests, support 21stcenturywire.com. There's different ways you can support us. Of course, we prefer if you'd subscribe and become a member at 21wire.tv. Just go to the donate page, donate here. That's on our website, upper left-hand corner. You'll see the yellow gold button. That's where you hit. Different options there, crypto, different coins, and again, PayPal, etc. All the usual avenues there. So support independent media. Also support Alternate Current Radio as well. There's a link to ACR, Alternate Current Radio, on our show page. Independent media needs your help now more than ever. And if you like the Midweek Wire, our new program, which we're putting out every week as well, and more to come. We're working on doing a lot more. So we want to do more. We need your help to do it. So those of you who've jumped in to help us, listen, we really, really appreciate it. But this is still our main program, the Sunday Wire, every week, 12 till 3 Eastern Standard Time in the U.S., 5 till 8 UK time. And again, I'm your host. You can go to the archives at 21stcenturywire.com and listen back to all the episodes as well. So thank you very much for everybody who's doing that. That's all we've got time for today. Thank you for joining us on the Sunday Wire this week. It has been real, and we'll leave you with the music of our friend Joseph Arthur. Still waiting for that ceasefire. Maybe it'll come this week. Take care. All the best.
Sides when their mothers cry, and no real way to justify their death that comes from an evil sky. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now in Gaza somehow. Damaged like a nuclear bomb, Dresden in a kill box. People can't escape. They're told to leave, but where can they go? A genocide, some think is biblical faith. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now in Gaza somehow. This might be the last time to raise a hand about who we are. What's this say about who we are? 'Cause this might be the last time to raise a hand about digital images and digital lies. Cut out their heart along with their supply. The propaganda leads to dehumanize our fellow humans and silence their cries.